Hello, everyone, and welcome to Weekly Manga Recap. It's March the 9th of 2022. I didn't just stare at my clock in order to make sure I got the date right. Hello, I'm Nick. I'm here with Chris.
That's me.
And also someone else.
Who's that someone else?
I don't know. They sound sexy.
They do. They sound like a little Snorlax I cuddle with.
Every time I guest on a podcast, I have to decide if I'm going to be self-effacing or super confident, and I never know before I open my mouth. I'm going to be like, oh no, he sounds like someone who sucks, someone who should eat shit and die, or like someone with a big dick. You never know what you're going to get.
It's Austin Yorski of Dice Funk.
Oh, I didn't say that.
Yeah. Who's Austin Yorski at Dice Funk?
Yeah, I don't know, just some guy. He plays Dungeons and Dragons for a living. You've both been on his show. Talking about himself in the third person? That's a choice he made.
Yeah. Just type Dice Funk into something and it'll come up. I think you could type it into Spotify. It'll come up. You can type it into recipes.com. I believe something comes up. You can type it into fanfiction.net. I have no idea what comes up, but something will come up, I'm sure. And,
yeah, more fan fictions than recipes, I imagine.
Yeah, you go to homedepot.com, you type in Dice Funk, you get a result, and it's pretty interesting.
Every day that we bring up fanfiction.net, a little part of me wonders if anyone's ever going to discover the very embarrassing crossover fanfiction I wrote when I was 13. It's still on there.
Can you give a hint to one of the franchises involved?
Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon.
Ah, damn. I'm really hoping.
It's not Pokemon. Pokemon didn't make it to the version I put up on FF.net. I actually took that out. Yu-Gi-Oh, like Legend of Zelda.
Pikachu would have ruined the atmosphere I was going for.
I really need you to have put something very specific in there that really dwindles the possibilities down. Like, oh, it was Legend of Zelda.
Ranma 1/2.
It was Legend of Zelda, Pokemon, and designing women.
I don't. You have to understand that 13-year-old me didn't have such broad tastes. So 13-year-old me didn't even watch like sitcoms. So
hey, can I start off with a real quick tangent into this gigantic episode of stuff we have to talk about?
It's recap. Go ahead.
Yeah. I saw the new Batman movie, and this is no spoilers.
You saw the
Batman movie, and there are no spoilers intended or anything like that. This is like stuff that happens in the first beginning. I just wanted to note, so Jeffrey Wright plays Jim Gordon in this movie,
right,
who is essentially the only friend Batman has on the police force. And I was very tickled that for some reason, Jeffrey Wright, I think, or maybe a director told him to do this, made a choice to have a very particular way of referring to Batman. So he's the one who kind of has to mediate between like Batman and the police detectives or the other like police officers at points. And whenever things get kind of spicy, he has to calm Batman down. And when he does it, he always is like, calm down there, man. What are you doing, man? Get it together, man. And I like the idea that he keeps calling him man because he thinks that's his surname. He's like, yes, Mr. Man.
I did notice that. I did see that film, and it's my understanding that some of the acting is strange because it was made during the height of COVID, and that everyone was
and not everyone's acting opposite each other.
Well, yeah, there's like some. It's not necessarily that they were all like distant, but it was like the director wasn't on set and would like radio down and stuff, and so it wasn't quite as naturalistic as it would have been otherwise.
Jeff, about your use of the word man.
You're breaking up. Sorry, man. Yeah.
I feel like at one point I'd have to watch the movie again, which I don't know if I'm going to do for a very long time because that's 3 hours of my life. But if I swear to God. He may have been referring to another police officer in the room, but I swear to God, at one point, Jim Gordon refers to Batman as Chief. And I also like the idea he just has a really familial relationship with him. Like, come on, dude, we got to catch the Joker, broski. Like, let's get out there.
Commissioner, what's the problem? Hey, bro, how you doing?
Yeah, I watched that with Leon Thomas, Renegade cut on YouTube, and when it was over, we turned to each other, and I said, "That was terrible. I loved it," and he said, "That was great. I hated it." So if you ever wanted to see two people with the exact opposite tastes, that's us. That's our comedy dynamic.
Which one of you is the clean one, and which one is the messy one in The Odd Couple?
That's the thing. We're both the clean one, I think, but I guess I'll give it to him because my situation is very messy because of my partner. So,
cat,
yeah,
I understand.
you know, Aoife's perfect. She's an angel. She's never made a mess. She's never drank out of the toilet. Anything you've heard to the contrary is slander.
Nick.
And anyone who would raise such a thing is a horrible person.
Nick, we have so much to talk about today. That's why we brought Austin on.
Yeah, well, we have one specific thing we were talking about. I need you guys to explain something to me.
Okay.
What was this manga about?
Okay, interesting. So I'll take the lead on this. We are talking about Kamigawa Neon Destiny, which is a set based on
Dynasty.
Already off to a bad start. Got the name wrong.
What? Kamigawa Neon Dynasty.
You said Destiny.
You said Destiny.
Whatever. They're very similar words. I had a stroke. You gotta give me a break on these things. Come on.
Well, there's the first weaponization of that.
Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, which is a set in the Magic the Gathering universe, and is a set that was originally based off of Japanese mythology, infamously one of the most poor-selling sets in Magic's history, so much so that people would frequently ask, hey, can we return to Kamigawa? And the response was, no, it sold really poorly. So a return is going to be pretty difficult. And then later on, they start adding the terms like the way it was or under the same flavor that it was. So they did find a way to return to Kamigawa. It just involved them getting rid of most of the mythology stuff and adding Gundams and anime references. And that's how we got to Neon Dynasty, which they decided to celebrate by releasing a manga that explained the story.
Do you think it's a surprise to your listeners that Magic the Gathering has an ongoing story?
To a certain extent, in the same way that I sometimes get surprised there are lore and things that I'm like, surely no one cares that much about this. But then you find out there's, like I didn't think there were 5 Nights at Freddy's lore. And then you find out that there's like hours and hours of lore videos on it.
It's mostly lore, very minimal gameplay.
I just thought robots attacked you.
You could argue that there are entire people whose online careers are based on the fact that those games exist and people read far too deeply into them. So,
Yep. But yeah, for the last 30 years, Magic the Gathering has been releasing sets, as you said, of these cards. And the cards, in addition to being game pieces, tell a story. Although you kind of have to connect the dots yourself usually. You just have to like, oh, this character and this character, through context clues, have these traits and this, relationship or whatever. But it's very indirect. This manga that we're talking about today attempts to make a direct story that you can read. They used to release books. No one bought them because who reads, Well, it's all about comics these days.
You say that there are online stories that they now put on the Wizards website that will try to explain the plot. And now also sometimes they'll release like side ones to be like, hey, one of our legendary creatures was a toad with a magic hat. What's that character story? And they'll explain that.
It's interesting. They tried to reboot the fiction a number of times. They keep being like, oh, we're bringing it back. And except for the Ixalan story, which was really well received, usually what happens is people are like, this sucks, and no one reads it, and it goes away for a while until they try again.
Yeah. So they're still in the process of trying that. I wanted to especially note it because you can see the story that we read here essentially is told in 5 parts that you can find on the Magic website. I think it's mtgstory.com. We'll send it to you there. And an important note is that they credit Akemi Don Bowman, who I probably butchered, as the author of all that. A gesture they did not do to whoever they commissioned out to write the manga for Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, because I don't know who wrote that. No one seems to know.
They've had a strange history with their editing or with their crediting. They do it really well for the artists on the cards, but there's been a lot of controversy about people not getting the credit they deserve. So Hasbro do better, Wizards do better. Rough.
So Nick, Now that you've heard that explanation, did it answer any of your questions about what happened in the Kamigawa Neon Dynasty manga?
No.
I'm so fascinated to learn how this hit you because I know all these characters. I know why they're doing what they're doing.
This manga's bad, so...
Okay, but was it comprehensible? Look, did it mean anything?
No.
Okay, good. Awesome.
That's the main reason it's bad. Look, I want to clarify. I think that this looks pretty nice. It's a little bit weird at points because it's not exactly what I would call what you would think of as like a manga style. It's kind of someone trying to almost imitate what they would think a manga looks like in some places. And in others, it's like, okay, it looks really cool. There are also some bits of it that are either in color or have a sort of non-black and white palette to it. So like instead of like, being black, white, and gray, it's like shades of white, green, and gray, and it looks kind of cool. I think the designs are bad, but that's not the artist's fault because they're using what, already exists. But the main character looks stupid.
Okay.
His hair's dumb.
I was just gotta say, my Google Foo has given me the name Ryu Kamei as the manga artist. I'll put this in the chat for the spelling, but this is my understanding of who.
Okay, it is.
It actually should be credited.
I was gonna say it's not credited on the website anywhere, and I couldn't find any credit on the wikis or anything like that. So hopefully,
which is strange because for the main set they got guest manga artists for the cards, including the Fist of the North Star guy and the Metal Gear Solid guy.
Yeah, I wanted to, because Nick just said the main character Kaito sucks and he looks dumb. I want to note he's like a stealthy ninja. However, Magic is now on a big like spree of essentially drawing their having like alt art versions of cards, and the alt art version of Kaito is the one drawn by the Fist of the North Star artist. So in his regular art, he's this little fucking tiny ninja, and then in his art, he's got these gigantic super muscles and like a fucking cudgel in his backhand. It's the fucking wildest difference of the character, and it is the far superior art version.
Yeah, I'll post this in the chat for you, Nick. But this thing they've been doing recently is having 10,000 versions of every card, and I mean it does give you choice of which one you want to have, which is nice. But also it really muddies the aesthetic waters where you're like, is this person 10 feet tall or like 4'5"? Are they left-handed? Who knows anymore.
I will sum up what happens in this manga from what I can remember of it, and also while flipping through the pages of the website.
Okay.
So there is this ninja kid, and he's friends with the Empress.
Emperor. It's a gender-neutral title.
Okay. And so they're childhood buddies, and she gets taken by something.
Her planeswalker spark activated, and she shot.
That counts as being taken by something.
That is true. Something did take her.
And so he fortunately is a planeswalker, which I would have got. Look, I knew what that was because I am familiar with some MTG stuff. And also, any terms I'm unfamiliar with are explained in these quote-unquote handy banners that are strewn throughout the first third of the manga in the tiniest fucking crammed-together text imaginable, so that they can bring stuff up in the most incoherent, bad, makes no sense ways, and then expect you to just read the lore dump, which is not the purpose of having a tie-in story to explain stuff. Just give me the lore document if you're going to do that. Don't pretend you're telling a story.
My favorite is that they'll give you those little blurbs, and then they'll put a term in it later that they have to then explain it on. So like, Kaito is a planeswalker and a futurist. You're like, what the fuck's a planeswalker and a futurist? You're like, well, we'll explain that later. It's the next page. Keep reading. Come on.
So he can travel between the planes, and so he years pass, and he's looking for the Emperor, his childhood bestie, and he has a robo cat, and he's a terrible looking cyber ninja.
Come on, it's a tanuki.
Whatever. So
you can't tell because it doesn't have massive testicles.
Exactly. 2 out of 10. So he meets this other person and they fight, but then they decide that they're both trying to find the Emperor, and they just kind of do. Like, the story is like 60 pages long, and there's so much ground that it has to cover that all the in-between stuff gets skipped, and it's just like, and then they find her, and then they have to do something because her spark is unstable, so they have to get a different spark, or use her spark in a different way, or something. And so she does a thing to save everyone, and then the two of them have a dramatic moment, and she has to go away, I guess. And then the Dark Phyrexia place is like, we're gonna have a new planeswalker. Bah! And that's the end of the chapter. Sorry, the end of the entire thing.
Yeah, I think each individual sentence in your recap should have been its own thing, because it's like you could have like, here's the meeting Tamio kind of chapter, here's the infiltrating the lab chapter, but having it all as one thing it's comically fast. It's like watching someone do a flip book.
It's comical. I will note this. So you are not wrong. That is pretty much the entire plot of this story. I would normally otherwise say that this would be a bad series or bad set to do this sort of story about. However, Magic, we did a bonus podcast several years ago that had Austin on it, where we tried to explain to you the story of Magic the Gathering as it was preparing to enter this sort of crescendo, gigantic super war arc. After that ended, Magic's story kind of just paused for like 3 years. And every set after that was essentially a standalone set that was designed to kind of either reintroduce us to a character or sort of maybe address a character who's been missing for a while and kind of re-establish their relationship, or just introduce us to a new place entirely. And the actual overarching plot was conspicuously absent for a very long time. And the closest we had was in Call Time, where another one of the Praetors, I don't know if they actually call them Praetors in this, a creature like Jin-Kataxis, but this one was the green one instead of the blue one, showed up as like...
This will sound like gibberish.
Yeah, it sounds
this
like
has to be absolutely fucking unparsable.
It showed up as like a cameo, but that was about it. It kind of alluded to the idea, hey, we're eventually going to have to deal with the Phyrexians, who are sort of like robot murder monsters, essentially.
Phyrexians were around when I played the game.
Okay.
I remember.
Okay.
Yeah, they were the villain for the first like 15 years of Magic story, and then they disappeared, and then there was what's called the Gatewatch arc, which was essentially an attempt to make the Avengers. They wanted to be like Marvel's equivalent, and that was it had mixed response, and it culminated in the war arc that we've mentioned. And then since then, people were like, well, who are the heroes now? Like, well, the Gatewatch isn't showing up anymore. What are the stakes? Who are the villains? And so now they're slowly reintroducing the Phyrexians. But in real time, it's taken like 10 years because I got back into the game with Kaladesh, that was before I even went to law school. So it must have been like 8 years ago or something. And that's when Tezzeret, who shows up in this manga, gets the bridge, which allows them to transport Phyrexians from plane to plane, because their weakness historically has been that they can't planeswalk, and so they were stuck and their machinations couldn't spread throughout the universe. But then Tezzeret, who is like a half metal man, and remember the Phyrexians, they're a cult dedicated to replacing organics with machines, so they have a natural like affinity for each other, although maybe Tezzeret has his own agenda. So that he gets the bridge, and then it's like, all right, so now it's Phyrexian time. And that, I mean, you could have gone through high school and middle school since that happened, and now he's back. Like, it's following the story is like a lifelong endeavor. It's so wild.
It is worth noting. So Kaito is a brand new planeswalker in this story. He was introduced in this set. The Wanderer and Tamio are the other two planeswalkers who show up. They both have not done anything since War of the Spark, where they also kind of just showed up as cameos, essentially. So this is essentially a set of mostly new characters. The big sort of thing is like, oh, at the end, Tamio has been turned into a planeswalker. So this is what the Phyrexians are trying to do. A plot point has happened.
Yeah, I mean, if you've been following Magic
Okay,
and you
hang on a
could be
second.
attached to Tamio, and this could have ended with like a serious gut punch. I know it didn't mean anything to you, Nick, but there are people for whom this was like a real like waterworks, like genuine sadness.
I just read one of the little notes that's in the margins.
Okay.
I'm just going to read it off. Kimoto, Kaito's Tanuki drone. However, its droid entity is Himoto, the kami of the spark. She is housed within the drone, and Kaito calls her by the nickname Ponpon.
Yeah.
So what?
Why is this a manga if it's just going to be a list of facts?
So this is the very interesting thing. Although Kamigawa Neon Dynasty has been an extraordinarily well-received set, it sounds like the early numbers say that this was a resounding success for them to return to. It is trying to build upon some of the lore that exists previously, and this manga does not take time to explain any part of it. It doesn't explain that this is a world where like the spirits and humans kind of live side by side and have different aspects and evolve with each other. Like there's very little time spent for the notion of what Ryodai or whatever, which is sort of like the very essence of Kamigawa itself, which is a gigantic dragon of praying arms interlocked together with screaming faces upon its head. Like, I feel like that should have been a much bigger deal, but you see it in like one panel and then it never shows up again, really. And, you know, it's, look, I will say this. I have read this manga. I've also, a shout out to Magic Arcanum, which is a YouTube channel that basically explains the Magic storyline set by set, which is helpful for me because I don't really follow it as closely as I used to. I watched that video as well. And from what I can gather, this is essentially the story. Kaido walks from place to place. A couple people show up. He fights Jin Gataxis. And then it kind of just ends. And there's like, they make mention to like 7 different factions who don't do anything. And dope, it's over.
And what's even doper is this is going to happen 3 more times because they need to introduce the other 3 Praetors who each need to like steal an item from a plane. Because in Kaldheim, Vorinclex got like the fucking whatever from Essica.
This is unfortunately what Magic's story has become. Is they're like, we've gone to a new plane, and it's like, all right, cool. What weird, stupid MacGuffin is there going to be that they need to take? Because that has been Magic's story for like 3 straight years right now.
Yeah, because they got to get all the MacGuffins together to have the actual meaningful arc, I guess. But I mean, you mentioned Kyodai's art. I've seen the card, and it didn't really sink in that this dragon was made of faces until this manga. So if nothing else, I really did take something from this reading, which is what a weird looking dragon.
Yeah, it's like body is literally made up of praying hands. And I was like, that feels like that should be way more notable.
It's an Elden Ring boss. It's awesome. But yeah, I just looked it up also. Jin Gataxius' last appearance was in 2011. So literally 11 years since we got to see this character, who I think is very cool, who was wearing preposterous pants.
Okay,
did you catch this man's pants?
I sat there and I was like, why is Jin Gataxis wearing pants? That's the biggest question I have. Was he like, a new plane for me to dominate? He's like, well, better get to the culture, though. Get some pants, but might as well rock the style while I'm here.
It's the most bananas choice ever. He's wearing these fucking pants. And then he gets cut in half. And then once again, if you don't know anything about these people, this must have been strange. He's just fine at the end after getting cut in half. Did that register as strange to you, Nick?
I didn't really even register it at all. Just guys showed up. They kind of fought. You got to see about 1/80th of a fight scene each time it happened, and then it was over.
Yeah, that's right.
Out of curiosity, Nick, so Planeswalkers are sort of the key IP piece of the Magic Gathering franchise. And they're essentially individual superheroes, and they all kind of have their own unique gimmick and like fighting thing that they do. So like Chandra is all about fire, and Jace is the mind mage who can manipulate memories and things like that. What do you believe Kaito does based off this series?
Infiltrate things.
So from what
he has ninja stars. He conjures ninja stars from his sword, right?
I believe that is meant to be what his special sort of fighting gimmick is he has like a magic sword that can make materials, and that's what he fights with. But I really found
no, the main character of this story is Ten.
He does hit a couple things though, so I think we had to give him a little bit of credit. Now, what do you believe Tamio does? Because they do not explain that at all. She just fucking whips out some scrolls and does stuff.
No, I don't know.
She got owned. Poor Tamio. It's especially tragic too because her like defining feature is that she's a mother who like takes care of orphans and is just like the only nice person in this stupid universe. And she, at the end, she gets her legs get melted or some shit. Do you see this in the final panel? What is happening with her poor fucking legs? Ugh.
Maybe.
Oh, that's Tamio. I didn't even realize that was her.
Yes, Tezzeret. Okay, so this is something. I mean, you can finish your point. I just want to say what they've done to Tamio is called completion, which in the Phyrexian cult basically is they've replaced her flesh with metal, and now she's like a
right. I watched Sonic Saddam. They're roboticizing her. Okay.
Oh no! Is this just Sonic? Oh no!
Everything
all
Sonic.
Comes back to Sonic. It really is. Who's the cat of Magic the Gathering? It's a Johnny. I don't know why I asked.
Probably a bunch of them.
It is a Johnny. So with that said, Nick, do you feel, because we have a lot of manga to talk about today, so I feel like we can't spend a ton of time just waxing about this 60-page nothing series. Do you find yourself interested in this series?
I find myself less interested in the series than before I heard anything about it.
Okay. This actively, you had no expectations reading this, made you lower. You're like, I hate this now, and I know nothing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh man, I mean, yeah, I can see how this could be completely baffling. For me, it was pretty cool though. I like to see like at the beginning, especially when they kind of show the art of the old villains, Nicol Bolas, an Eldrazi, and then just a random fairy. That cracked me up so much.
It was great. It was the two greatest enemies the Gatewatch ever faced. I don't know, some fucking tutu with flying, I guess.
We don't have a third thing. Fuck.
Our third thing's the Phyrexians. We can't introduce them now.
Oh my god. Yeah.
So here's the thing. This is a spin-off manga of sorts. There is always a bit of a weird territory whenever it comes to manga that are based on pre-existing properties, especially if they are made specifically to promote something else. Like I remember that there was a Metroid manga that came out in Japan as a cross promotion with Zero Mission. I want to say, pretty damn good manga actually. But it goes like into like establishing lore and stuff, and it has a degree of freedom to it that isn't just, and is like a summary of the main plot of everything. There's always a challenge of like, if you want to adapt something else into a manga, then you have to also adapt the way that the story is told to an entirely different medium. And when that medium is a 60-page illustrated story, then there has to be a lot of corners cut because you only have so much room to tell anything. I think that maybe the best thing would have been to not do the entire apparent arc of this, which I didn't know that was the case. So I thought this was be like an introduction to the story, not an entire set's worth of storylines, basically.
So they have cards in Magic. I feel like I have some right here, and I don't have them exactly with me, but they have cards now that they will mark as being quote unquote story spotlight cards. And these are supposed to be the cards.
Yeah. I think we talked about that in the bonus podcast.
Yeah. So like I do have a couple here. I'll try to throw them up to the camera and probably mess this up completely. So you can see like when we were young right here is one of them, and that's to show the Emperor and Kaito when they were young as a story spotlight. And Anchor to Reality is one which shows the Emperor getting the
reality chip, which we didn't even talk about as like an important MacGuffin.
Yeah.
I thought that they stopped trying to rip off the Avengers.
Well, it's hard to get away from it. It's consumed all of culture.
Yeah. So these story spotlight cards sort of go throughout the set. They used to number them, now they don't, but it's pretty easy to figure out the story. Tamio being completed is the last story spotlight card. It is the end of the set. It is the end, is what we're kind of teasing out to. So this manga literally covers the entire story of Kamigawa Neon Dynasty.
It's very funny that you didn't realize it was Tamiya who had been completed, because that's like the gut punch. Like I think I genuinely saw when it was revealed, like people on social media being like actually crying, because this is like a character who's been around for like a long time and is like really endearing.
We have someone in our chat right now, Counseless, which says, honestly, killing Tamiyo just killed what little interest I had in the game. So yes, it is definitely a character that is I will be right there with you if the next Planeswalker completed is Angrath. If they kill my Minotaur man,
he shows up once, just the second time, just to get killed.
Oh man, I'd be so upset. I'd be so butthurt. I'd be like, this bullshit game. I'm going to Yu-Gi-Oh! And hopefully they have a Minotaur pirate there I can fall in love with.
I do hope
you killed Chewie.
I hope this presages the next couple of arcs, though, that they're just going to be the Praetors showing up in increasingly ridiculous clothes and killing off a main character, or just have fucking Urbrask with a jaunty hat, Ella Schnorn in a pimp coat, just wiping out beloved characters.
The next set is going to be like noir gangster themed, and I really want one of them to show up in a little suit, because they're just like, it's just like Jin Kataxis had the pants, I need a little pinstripe suit, and then they just murk one of your favorite characters and leave.
Give Shieldred a zoot suit. That's all I want. Please. All right. I can talk about this forever. You have to stop me.
The problem that comes down to for me is the fact that it seems as though this manga wasn't really constructed with the intent of, let's try and get people outside of Magic into this story. It was more of just like, hey, let's have like a single threaded story that is an adaptation of the story that we already tell in this, and it'll have lots of little fan service bits for people who are already into it. So it sounds like you both were perfectly fine with this whole thing. But again, as someone who has no attachment to any of these characters, this did not make me care about any of them or care about this story. It made the story seem very shallow and bad. So
I mean, yeah, it's all shallow. There's only so much you can do in the trading card format. Another plot twist we didn't even talk about, the reveal that the Emperor was the Wanderer was actually a big news to the community, because this character showed up before and everyone was like, oh, who is this? Who's the Wanderer?
Had no impact, considering that I didn't wait years for it. I had to wait 40 pages. So
it's also worth noting it was notable because they're like, oh, it's just like a normal ass person, because the grand theory to the entire Magic the Gathering community was that it was going to be the Eldritch Being who said it was locked in the moon, but it wasn't actually, and was secretly masquerading as a planeswalker the entire time. And a lot of people are like, oh, it's just a person.
The Wanderer is Emrakul theory. It was just bad. We saw her go to jail. She's in the moon. What are you talking about?
Right, but whatever. She controlled Tamiyo to put her in the moon. She wants to be there. Who knows what machinations she could do from there.
Oh my god. They just locked her away because people were tired of Eldrazi.
That is true. I will say this. This manga was not particularly good, but I don't think the story for this set was particularly good either. Kaido isn't a very interesting lead. He's also a blue-black planeswalker who acts the most red I've ever seen a planeswalker act in my life. Everything he does is burst into rooms and attack people. He's the worst ninja. And I think
he's Naruto though. That's the point.
But I do appreciate them creating this thing. I like if they're going to continue to basically co-opt cultures to create the sets for their trading card game that they sell for a lot of profits. It'd be nice if they put that forward, and I do like the idea of them paying Japanese artists and hopefully Japanese storytellers to help them actually create this set and do some cool stuff with that. I think that's a good way to at least start trying to do some cool things.
Oh man, I read a lot of chapters for you too. I read so much
a lot
manga
to get through.
Yeah.
So I think that if we're done with the Magic manga,
we'll bring it up. We'll pepper it through some episodes, through some chapters.
This One Piece fight reminds me a lot of the War of the Spark.
So to give you a little hint, Undead Unluck is kind of like the Throne of Eldraine of manga.
My Hero Academia, chapter number 346. Super hyper unfair broken stage. It's a weird title, but
it does describe what the chapter is about, though. It is about a super hyper unfair broken stage.
It is absolutely correct. Apparently, by the way, Nechire's got a new haircut, so a time skip must have happened because a female character got a new haircut. I think Miriko's got a new haircut too, for that matter.
Yeah, I
Her
think they
hair's
both.
shorter.
I think they both just shortened their hair slightly. And
A couple months have passed. Time for a new hairstyle.
ladies, am I right, Nick?
That's more just. I wouldn't even say lady. I would just say it's like manga, because that's how you demonstrate a time skip has happened.
I mean, it's
All the
worth
female characters
noting.
have different hair.
I was gonna say it's worth noting the only characters we see with different hair of the female characters. Ed Shot or whatever his stupid name is was like, no, I got to keep this 90-degree fucking arc to my hair.
This is fine. My hair stays the same no matter what happens to me. So
My hair, academia.
God damn it. It's Bakugo's group. Deku was supposed to be there. They're here to try and beat up Shigaraki / second all for one. And they are in this giant floating sky arena that also has the UA building in it. And Shigaraki looks around and is like, oh, I'm floating in the sky. Okay, I'll just disintegrate the entire island. He tries to disintegrate it, and it stops because a tile bursts up from the ground when he tries to disintegrate and just launches him into the air. And then it disintegrates, and it knocks him into an electromagnetic barrier that's hovering over all of them. They're in a giant floating barrier-covered dome with individual parts that transform and launch and stuff so that he can't disintegrate his way out. Yay!
Yeah.
And basically after that, we just kind of like go to show like this is how much this is all the prep work that Batman's been doing in order to fight Doomsday Superman. And
can I note something real quick? A query. Has Best Jeanist always had a buckle on his belt that just says BJ on it right over his face, like right where his mouth would be? Is that
probably.
I feel like I've never noticed it before, and I'm so immature. I was like, I had to have laughed at this before, right? It's a belt buckle that just says BJ right over his mouth.
Hang on. Best Jeanist images. I think the buckle might be new.
It's new? All right.
I think the buckle might be new. I think it was just a regular belt.
Carry on.
Before. All right.
That's how you know
Look,
that we're getting to the climax of the story.
Yeah,
it's BJ time.
But we're just going to have to unload everything right now so that we can get past it. And, okay, so a lot of different heroes and students are all working together to power the giant floating fortress thing. That's what Yaoyorozu is doing. Hooray. Yaoyorozu is in the story.
Yep.
Hatsume gets a big shining moment too because she designed the whole thing. Yay! She gets more moments. We thought that she had her last important moment. No, she designed the giant floating fortress prison thing. Guess what Kaminari is doing? He's a battery.
Yep.
Yay.
All these characters are stars, Nick, just like Monoma was 2 weeks ago or whatever.
That's right, Monoma. Your moment has come. You're going to pull all the strings. You're going to decide who goes where, transport the heroes and villains place to place. Kaminari, you're the star. You're a giant AA.
There you go.
There are no small parts, only small players. So.
Are you saying it wasn't cool when I was the tree in my 6th grade play of Jesus of Nazareth? Which is weird.
I didn't say that.
Because I don't think there are any cactuses out there.
Now, you seem under-enthused with the whole everyone working together to defeat the villain plan. Would you be enthusiastic if, like, they all set up this elaborate plan to defeat the villain and then Best Jeanist just killed him, just, like, with a lucky hit? And there's like, oh, shit, I guess we went through all that trouble for nothing. We win.
That would be pretty awesome.
I feel like, would that be a good shocking swerve? If that's how
I'd be more in favor of it if it were just All for One, because we've grown very tired of All for One in the past few months. Shigaraki's a much better character, so
I just think it'd be very funny to build up this huge cast of characters with their own unique abilities and that can, synchronize in interesting ways, and then just be like, oh no, I just shot him with a gun, he's dead. It's over.
Check out my quirk, everyone. Being American. So Shigaraki tries to instead blast his way out with a shockwave because he's got a billion quirks
blasting.
Yep. Essentially. But guess what? Monoma's here too, he's copying Aizawa's quirk while Manuel is there, putting water in his eye so he never has to blink. And Aizawa specifically says, as long as we maintain continuous contact, then he doesn't actually have a time limit on his mimicking quirk, so he can just constantly do this and constantly lock down Shigaraki's quirks. Or one of the quirks, because then Shigaraki uses a different quirk and grows a bunch of hands out of his hand and unleashes an attack. And as Mirko is flying around, and she's like, "Hey, Dynamite!" Remember, that is Bakugo's dumb but amazing name. Got any intel on what that is? And Bakugo's like, "I don't know." And then a bunch of hands explode outward and surround Mirko. Oh no, is she gonna die?
Maybe.
Maybe. It's kind of hard to tell at this point. So,
I mean, she definitely loses what looks like an arm. Well, I guess that's the arm that she already
lost that arm already. It's
okay.
fine.
That's how it works. It doesn't bother you the second time.
Awesome.
I do like the effect of all the hands, though. I know I said this already, but I'm extreme Elden Ring vibes. Like half the bosses in that game have 100 hands.
Okay, so I want you to grade all these chapters on an Elden Ring scale. What Elden Ring score would you give this chapter?
I mean, with the hands, I gotta give it a high Elden Ring score. It's like a 9 out of 10. And this is Godric the Grafted level of hands.
There you go.
I'm gonna assign each one a boss as well. I've 100%ed Elden Ring, by the way. 75 hours.
Jesus.
Well,
Jesus.
At least this grading scale will be more consistent than when we were deciding the Money in the Bank thing. So.
Oh, that was scientific.
Yeah. There was an X factor.
Yeah, you can't argue with the X factor.
All right, let's move on then. I thought it was a good chapter, by the way. Let's move on to chapter 101 of Undead Unluck, Regulation. So we are introduced to a narrator who basically is like, can you imagine a world without stars? Anyway, there were some eventually because UMA Galaxy was added, and that is the rule of the world essentially now. And that is to give us the context that Andy has just killed UMA Thirst, meaning the rule that there is thirst in the world has just been eliminated. It no longer exists.
I don't like this new narrator. We're not seeing her feet enough.
Yeah, that is true. Eden Zero is a much better narrator who walks around with her feet out all the time.
You've been manga poisoned, you know that, right? The brain damage is permanent.
Oh, that's not the stroke. Okay.
Oh no.
So we just continue. Andy runs into UMA Insect, and they're like, "Oh, whoa!
Don't kill the insect, Andy."
They're like, "Don't kill that. We need insects." And he's like, "Fuck it." Andy just fucking cuts UMA Insect.
All the bugs are gone, and everything that bugs do is erased.
Exactly.
We're going to die.
But in his defense, he's like, "We're gonna die anyway, so I'm just gonna kill these rules along the way." Basically, he murders that, and they're like, "Wait, why did all the terrain behind us change?" It's like, "Oh, because I killed every insect that's ever existed in the world."
King shit.
Exactly. It is worth noting that Lucy seems to be able to recognize that things have changed, which seems to suggest she's a negator as well. She's the because negators are the
she was either going to die or she was the negator. Like,
yeah. So Andy just says basically like, yeah, it doesn't really matter right now. We got to kill these UMAs anyway. So what's the point in wasting time and effort protecting a bunch of rules when the world's going to go belly up anyway? And it's like, yeah, I guess so. Dude, fucking go for it. So then,
oh no, I accidentally killed the UMA rule, life.
Well, come on, he doesn't do anything as serious as that. He just runs into Gravity, Slice, and Magma next. And they're like, "We're going to hold you down."
Why is there a Slice?
Look, Nick, we're about to find out.
How's he going to fight if he kills Slice, Chris?
He doesn't kill Slice. Let me finish the chapter. So Andy's like, "Oh, you're going to tie me down? Like, what's going to happen?" And they're like, "What, you dare to face all three of us? What can you and your load human body do?" And Andy says, "Ha, your rules being so bound by logic never fails to blow my mind. there ain't no rules saying I've only got one body. Then he rips himself apart, sends his skeleton at one of them, his flayed skin at the other, and the last one he shoots all of his coagulated blood at.
I know you don't do panel of the week, but the do Mr. Skeletal is absolutely.
See, my favorite is the flayed skin who just has to like float up like.
Oh my god, incredible. This is such a good story. I mean, I'm kind of biased because if you listen to my show, you know the idea of like people with specific word powers and forces that represent like cosmic laws is our whole thing. But it takes like a whole season to fight one of them. He kills like 3 in one is amazing. It's like, what if you did my shit, but you were just not afraid at all? And honestly, it's based. It's incredible.
So yeah, as Austin alluded to, Andy kills all 3 roles, including Slice, which is the way Andy kills all of his antagonists. So I don't know what we do from here. It is worth noting that he just smashes Magma, I think. But we cut over to Juez, who is like being told like, hey, like crazy changes are happening, really. And he's just kind of like, yeah, I guess Andy's really fucking shit up out there. So she's like, all right, go out there and find which UMAs are dead based on new changes, and we'll locate UMAs capable of covering their loss to kind of mitigate the damages. But then, boom, we get an inverse color palette, and Juez is on the moon. And Luna is there saying, or Juez is first like, this is a first, you contacting me, and I believe the character was called Luna, just says, regulations are going to be enacted. UMAs and negators exist solely to create rules for one another. Each of them added with clear intention in order to create an ideal world. The rules are God's will embodied, and a negator eliminating the rules is unprecedented. God will never allow that to stand. Undead has incurred God's wrath.
Oh no! It's gonna feel clean.
Yeah,
that's God's wrath, right? Right?
Yeah, pretty much. They can't be regenerated,
isn't it?
Yeah, you got it. See, Austin, he's trying to like mediate between us. He's trying to find common ground. I do like that Luda's just like, you gotta stop him now, or else Joe's like, he's not gonna stop. You killed Fuku. You killed his love interest. He's gonna fucking murder everybody now. Look, there's no 101st loop anymore. In this loop, the 100th, Undead is gonna become your greatest threat and wage an assault against you all. And Luna just says, very well. Then I will now exercise God's authority and enact regulations to adjust the world. And we just see a beam of light hit the earth, and Andy says, ha, looks like we got a special guest.
Also, Luna doesn't actually seem all that perturbed by all this because they are constantly like nursing a teacup.
Yeah,
so
come on, gotta drink a little bit at a time.
So on the Elden Ring scale, this is an 11 out of 10. A Star Scourge Radon specifically, as he holds back the stars, and the streak of light at the end. It's just 1-to-1. It's perfect synchronicity. So this is an easy score to give.
I was excited this chapter came out this week because I was like, this is a fucking metal ass chapter to show Austin.
This is ballistic.
I
feel like if this were like the first ever chapter of Undead Unluck that I read, I'd be like, what is happening? I think I need to read more.
I'm going to say this now. The moment of Andy ripping himself into thirds to kill all 3 UMAs at once is the fucking most awesome moment. Like, this has to be at the end of the year for whatever award we can give it. Coolest manga, like coolest panel, whatever it needs to be. This moment fucking ruled.
Honestly, I'm a little jealous that I haven't been so bold in my storytelling. I imagine when like Death showed up on my show, I should just let you kick the shit out of it, Chris. Just rip yourself in half and beat its ass instead of spending 30 episodes talking about philosophy.
I'll come back on Dice Funk at some point and I'll just start fucking things up that you introduce.
Yeah, but like, yeah, we're in Undead Unluck mode now, bitches.
Undead Unluck, as a D&D campaign, would essentially mean the story gets scrapped and the DM has to come up with a new campaign like every 2 sessions, essentially. So
I'm gonna kill UMA dice. Then what are you gonna do?
Shit.
Okay, yeah, bonkers chapter. Kaiju number 8, chapter 57. Last time, Hoshina decided to make a deal with Kaiju number 10 to have it be weaponized in order for Kaiju number 10 to tell them all about Kaiju number 9. We see some random fuckers just talking about a meeting that's going to happen. Anyway, moving on. Hey, more people are talking about stuff. While Kafka and Kikoru are training with the first division, Kafka thinks to himself that he hasn't gotten a chance to apologize for hiding his secret from Vice Captain Hoshina when they learned that he's headed there for a conference. Narumi is off somewhere as well, and the vice captain says, "Oh, that sucks," because the first and third divisions both claim Tokyo as their main turf, inviting constant comparisons between the two of them. This leads to a sizable amount of territorial bickering and headbutting. Essentially, they get along like cats and dogs. And we see that Narumi and a bunch of first division goons have gone to meet up with Hoshina and his third division. And Narumi is really, really pissed off and has a candy cigar, I guess. I don't know exactly what that is, but it's striped. And he's I
think it's not a blunt, but it kind of almost looks like a blunt. You know what?
Wait, is this story getting cool?
Wait a minute. This is the dude who just does nothing but play video games all day. So I think it is a blunt. Like, I think he's just like, nah, I think it's supposed to be like a cigar.
If it is a blunt, he clearly hasn't been actually smoking it because he's very not calm right now.
Yeah, he's not.
So, he's really, really pissed off at Hoshina, and Hoshina kind of makes all of these very calm, smiley-faced, backhanded remarks towards him. Then they apparently have a rivalry that goes back to the academy, which Narumi is really, really, really pissed off about because he's like, "Oh well, I'm so much better than you," and Hoshina's like, "Well, I beat you in the miniaturized." In the miniature kaiju combat category. He's like, "Oh, fuck you! How dare you!" And then he's like, "Well, I beat you in every other aspect. I have every other title." And Hoshina's like, "I mean, you didn't beat Captain Ashiro in the long distance shooting category." And he's really upset about that. And everyone's like, "Ah!" And they're going to fight because they're basically like the Army and Navy. And then Narumi's vice captain shows up and he smacks Narumi over the head with a fan. And then he's a lot more professional with Hoshina, and they're like, "All right, time for a conference. And hey, look at all the captains. It's just like that other series with captains. No, not that one. The other one. No, the other one. That one. Yes, that one. That's the one that I was talking about. Yeah." So we just get some characters that we're familiar with, some that are new. Just little flashes of, hey, it's the captain of the second division, it's the captain of the fourth division, and so on. And they are here to talk about the matter.
We're introduced to these new captains, and not one of them is something fucking crazy. Like, one of them is not just like a bunch of slime and like a top hat and a trench coat or something like that, or like a minotaur or like a cat person. Like, they're all like, both of them are just normal ass fucking people. One has lightning bolt eyebrows, but come on, they should literally be made of lightning instead.
There's no Mayuri, basically, among them. Or even if it just, was Mayuri. Just fuck it. No. Mayuri from Bleach is here.
You saying he couldn't do it?
I mean, he could,
exactly.
I guess. I don't know. So they exchange some banter for a bit before Hoshina dives into the topic of number 9. And he says, so this is something that the first division can't handle on its own. And because number 10 has told us that it was created by number 9. Kaiju number 9 is very likely to be the first kaiju in history capable of intentionally creating extremely powerful new breeds of kaiju. It also went on to say, "I'm his prototype." Basically, number 10 is still very battle hungry and is like, "I want to fight the finished products that were created after me." So, makes sense why he wants to work together with Hoshina in this case. And they're like, and it was super powerful. It's got such a super high power level, and we think that, our force is said to be able to handle about 5 identified class threats at one time. But if we add an identified class threat over Fortitude 9.5 to the mix, that number becomes much smaller. And what if number 9 is creating more superpower kaiju than we could ever handle? So unless we cooperate across division boundaries, the nation is doomed. And to close things out, we cut to where kaiju number 9 is, mostly in the form of Isao's body, and they're surrounded by cocoons with kaiju growing inside them.
All right, Austin, give us the Elden Ring score.
It's like a 4 out of 10. This is an Erdtree avatar, where it's not that it's bad, but it's like a reskin of the demon from Dark Souls. You're like, I don't mind people reusing assets, but it's notable.
Yeah.
I've read Attack on Titan, so.
Ooh. Is there any notable points given to the end panel of a pulsating gore person surrounded by a bunch of like monster embryos?
Yeah, I mean that definitely.
Gore person is a great sequence of words.
Yeah, I mean that's very Elden Ring as well, and it is good. It's good. It just doesn't have that special spark. I didn't feel it, Okay. It's like I can appreciate it, but.
As to the actual context, I thought it was a fine chapter, but it's not as exciting as the stuff that was just going on between Hoshino and Kaiju number 10. And I don't particularly care about any of these new characters that got introduced, because to be honest, I don't care about most of the ones that we already knew from that panel. I was like, I don't like Ashino. I don't like Narumi. I don't care about whatever the vice captain of the first division was, who was apparently an important enough character to get his own introduction there. So it's sort of just like, it's fine.
Yeah, it was serviceable. That's about all I have to say about it.
Did everything it needed to cover. Let's go on and talk about Spy Family, Nick. Chapter 61, Mission 61, no chapter title, because that's how Spy Family works.
All right, so I want to take a little bit of time to talk about this, because it's actually a really good chapter.
Explain to me Japanese school culture, Nick, because I am so gaijin. I don't.
This doesn't have anything to do with Japanese school culture.
This is a very specific school. That's why they talk about.
I wasn't sure if I was missing something.
They talk about Thunderbolts.
This is in a made-up
stars.
country too. Yeah. So yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, as part of the story, to give you a bit of context, Austin, Anya is attending this very prestigious school because her adopted father, Lloyd, is a spy, which she knows because she's a psychic ignoring minds. And part of Lloyd's plan is for her to get into the inner circle at this school by becoming one of the most prestigious students there, which she could accomplish by earning stellar stars. However, she'll get expelled if she gets too many Tontritis bolts. The backup plan, since Anya's not a good student, she's just, a regular ass kid amongst a bunch of, prep school kids who have been prepared for this since birth, is for her to potentially become friends with Damien, who is the reason that Lloyd is trying to get inside this inner circle, because he's trying to get close to Damien's father, because he may have some connection to something that he's trying to investigate. So that is the motivations for Anya all throughout this chapter. So we start off with a mysterious figure walking through the school grounds, and they spot someone who is smoking, and they gesture to the person behind them who has a case, and he says, "Yes, Madam Schlag." And we just see a zooming in thing happening towards the person who was smoking, and then there's a thwack, and then the figure walks on while the person is passed out, having fallen to the ground. Dun dun dun. So since it's Spy Family, it's kind of framed in the way that you think like a really dangerous person has just killed someone.
I did not read the chapter particularly well the first time, and I thought that person was just murdered. And then I was like, oh, the rest of the chapter is a pretty normal school chapter. I bet that dude's not dead. And I had to go back and be like, oh no, he just got a demission or whatever.
Yes, he got himself a demerit. So
thank you for coming up with a word I clearly couldn't, and just said a word that has nothing to do with anything.
I got you. I understood.
I got Brine in 2 on Wordle the other day. I just need everybody to know it's the crowning achievement
I got
potentially
that one too.
of my life.
So
I wouldn't go around telling people that. That doesn't paint you in the best light.
It was brine, which is a hard word in and of itself, and I got it in 2.
Okay.
So we then get cut to Anya's class, and it's Henderson, right? I always forget his name.
Hendrickson, or no, that's Seven Deadly Sins. I forget what it is, something like that.
So he's basically telling everyone like, "Oh, you're going to get in trouble, and you might even if you don't get a." It is Henderson, nice. So if you have minor infractions, it could all add up to a tonitrus bolt, a demerit in the system. Are we clear? And he's like looking directly at Anya, who's like, why is he looking at me? Wow. And then we see, just like a bit of a reestablishment of Anya's kind of rivalry with Damien, where he keeps on mocking her and stuff, saying like, hey, I bet you're going to be the first student in our class who gets expelled for getting 8 bolts. And Anya starts to think like, I'm going to hit him. But instead, Becky's like, I'm going to hit you with Master Yor's knockout punch, because she's been training with Yor to be a strong fighter. So, yes. There's some stuff that goes on between Anya and Becky and Damien and his friends, but the longer things keep going, they're like, "Hey, if any of us ever gets a tonitrus bolt, then all 3 of us are gonna run through the school in our underpants." And Damien's like, "What?
Shut up! What are you doing?
Why are we promising this?
What
guys? We stand to gain nothing here." But then a student from another class runs in. They look like they're 30. Like, I don't know what is with this kid's face. But he warns them all that something terrible is happening. Oh my gosh, Madam Schlag is on the way. And we cut to Madam Schlag, and it turns out she's just a really strict older teacher who is really, really enthusiastic about giving out tonitrus bolts. And she pins them to kids' foreheads, which seems like it should not be allowed. That doesn't seem like something you can get away with. But then again, private schools, corporal punishment, I guess they get away with more. So she runs into Henderson, who they clearly had history with. She says like, oh, you've been too soft on everyone. Then we cut back to the students who ran away from her saying, oh yes, Mistress Donna Schlag of the disciplinary committee. They say the students of Eden Academy live in constant fear of her severity. She rains tonitrus bolts down on any student for any infraction, no matter how minor. She has single-handedly expelled over 100 students, and wherever she steps, not so much as a blade of grass will ever grow there again. Nice.
It's pretty metal.
See, although I didn't have the full context, I assumed this is based on something in Japanese schools where like they have a demerit system and some people go mad with power and just start expelling students because they're little freaks.
It's more like just a school life kind of setup.
I think it's maybe a private school. I don't know what private schools in Japan are particularly like, but I assume it's probably closer to that.
Because I've never experienced anything like this. I have heard of demerits, but that's not a thing any school I've ever gone to.
I mean, in my school,
it's just like in the 7th tower. It's just like in the 7th tower where Shadow Master Sushin would, just to fuck with Tal, would give him demerits, which were bracelets that you had to wear on your wrist, and it would show shame because the bracelets would clang around in your arm the more that you had. Haven't you guys ever read the 7th tower?
No, but that does sound like you risk running the students turning that into like a status symbol where it's really cool to have a lot of bracelets.
No, well, all of the people who live in the tower are giant lamos, basically. So no one. There were no cool chosen, basically.
Bummer.
Sorry. I've read those books like 50 times. I really liked them. Sorry. So
can you help meet me in the middle? Is there an allegory to like Muppet Babies you could compare it to that I might know?
Okay, imagine if the nanny and Muppet Babies was just...
Mm-hmm. And what's Gonzo doing? Because he's the only character I care about. He's the only character that matters.
Oh, this
Gonzo
is a Garth Nix
series. Presumably. He's too extreme.
Damn.
Anyway, apparently this woman not only like is very enthusiastic of punishing misdeeds, she like actively seeks it out, and she's like, I'm going to just punish these kids because, her life is very fulfilling, I guess. So she lines Anya's class up and demands that they get ready for a bag inspection. So the first kid she pulls in is like, what's this? Oh, it's a snack from my dorm. Did you think you were allowed to bring this onto campus? No, I didn't. I'm sorry. And so she pins a freaking detritus bolt to his head. Yay. Yeah. So she just the punishments get more and more ridiculous until it reaches a point where she looks through a kid's bag and it's just normal school stuff. And then she's like, "Where's your handkerchief?" I don't have one. Tonitrus. And they're like, "Why?" because there was once a student here at Eden Academy, an honor student who was once a boy from Imperial Scholar, but then he forgot to bring his handkerchief to school one day, so he wiped his hands on his pants, and people mocked him for messing up his pants because it looked like he peed himself, and then he became a delinquent.
Are they setting up Pee Pants to come back as like a villain?
Maybe.
They are. Which would be just like Spy Family to do. Just like bring back this dark pee pants troublemaker as like a new like criminal or something. So everyone in Anya's class is looking through the pockets to make sure that they have a handkerchief in everyone, but Damien doesn't have one, and he's like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna get a bolt." And then because I get the bolt, the stupid agreement that my friends made means we're gonna have to run through the school naked. We'll be ruined forever. So he tries to pawn a handkerchief off of his friend, but he decides that would not look good too, because people would see him like breaking the rules that way. So he's like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And then he thinks, I can never face my father again if I get in this kind of trouble. And so Anya's like, wait a minute, that means that plan B is in danger. I've got to do something. So she rifles through her pockets, and then she gets Damien's attention, and she's like, hey, Scion boy, you can borrow my handkerchief. And he's like, what about you? And Anya's like, it's okay. I always bring 2 handkerchiefs. Good for her.
Shout out
Always
to the
be prepared.
localizer for that. For handkerchiefs.
Handkerchief, yeah. So she gets this, imagine thought in her head, like, oh yeah, and Damien's gonna be so grateful, and then we're gonna get to stop by, and she imagines this bit where his father just says, "I'm so happy that you've saved my scion that I'll stop the war," and the world was saved. Anya's imagination spots are the best. Damien goes up for inspection, and the woman realizes, why does your handkerchief monogrammed with an A? And he's like, it's the A's in Damien. Good
I
thinking,
like,
kid.
she's just like, sounds good.
So it's Anya's turn for an inspection, and she's like, all right, I've got my handkerchief right here. She doesn't have it in her bag. She thought she had 2, and then it turns out she doesn't have them. So she gets a nitrous bolt, and there is so much panel space dedicated to this moment of her just receiving this nitrous bolt. It's great. And she's like, oh my god, I didn't have a second bolt. But Damien is totally struck by this, because he's just like, wait, is she really just that stupid? She's not stupid. She's just average. Shut up, Damien. So, Damien starts to offer an explanation, because, like, no, this isn't right. She saved my butt, and then she sacrificed herself, so I can't. So he starts to protest, but Anya reads Madame Schler's mind, thinking, did these brats try and pull a trick on me? They'll get 2 bolts each. So Anya grabs him by his what do you call that? His coat. I can't remember the name of the brim of it. Anyway, and she shakes her head to stop him. And so Damien's really upset, because he's like, don't like being in debt to you, but I'll pay you back. Yeah. And Anya's like, you're gonna pay me back with cake? No! Shut up! I hate you! But yeah, that's basically it. Like Anya's like, she did a good thing. She got Damien in her debt, got a bit closer to him. Lloyd is really happy about this when she gets back home, and then he's like, wait a minute, is that? Yeah, I got it to nitrous bolt. And he faints. So they kind of made progress, maybe, but also Anya got it to nitrous bolt, and that's bad, because if she gets too many, then she'll be expelled, and the world is doomed.
Yeah.
10 out of 10. Obviously, Lich Dragon Fortisax, the Elden Ring boss, who hands out lightning with just incredible enthusiasm. Can't get enough handing out lightning. Fits perfectly. Funny as hell. Great chapter.
Excellent. I would like to add a little tidbit by our German friend Brala, who notes that Donnerschlag is a pun on Donnerschlag, which is, I guess, German for thunderstrike.
Oh my god, the layers.
Yeah. All right, Nick, let's talk about World Trigger, chapter 220. Yeah. I am so excited to talk about this. Actually, Nick, I don't want you to say anything. Austin, you read this chapter. What happened?
This is so funny because I think like 2 years ago or something, I was like, hey, do you have any manga recommendations? I haven't read a manga in a while. And you're like, you know what you would love, Austin? World Trigger. And with 2 years of hindsight, I feel like you were owning me. I feel like you were trying to hurt my feelings.
No.
You're like, you know what this
bitch Hey, all this stuff only happened in the last year, I'll have you know.
Just people talking about test results. Just people saying, look at these results. Look at these numbers. Look at these charts. How do they make you feel? Honestly, it's kind of avant-garde. It's like waiting for Godot. It is an experiment in distancing and alienation. It's Brechtian, I would say. It has a connection to the Irish theater tradition.
It's great because this chapter really encompasses where World Trigger has been for a while, where we only get one chapter and it's like the length of basically like a little bit longer than a standard chapter, and nothing of consequence really happens. A bunch of characters talk about their test scores and their essays and how their essays were graded before they prepare. They talk about how they're going to prepare for their next essay, and I fucking loved it. Like, I've been in such a weird scope with this series where I was like, give it time. And then I reached a point, like they talked about their stupid battle series Fire Emblem game and the mechanics of it. I was like, I hate this. This sucks. And then this chapter came along and it was just unrepentantly 20 characters talking about each other and their test results. So I was like, fuck it. This series is great. I love it. I want this series to never change.
Well, you know what happened? We've had enough time since the battle sim came that we can be like, no, this is great again, because we just need a little distance from it. This I thought this chapter was fine. I really liked that everyone was just like, God, Ikoma's such a freaking child, but he's great.
I was reminded recently that like it was a plot point early on that Yuma was murdered in another world by like a super alien monster, and it is incomprehensible that this series would have that same plot point in it at this point.
Oh my god, I don't even know what Elden Ring boss, like the fucking intro boss in the combat tutorial, who's just a regular enemy.
It feels like it's the coding of Elden Ring. Like if you peel stuff back, you just get to see the numbers, and that's it.
This series is the windmills that everyone makes a bunch of boss jokes about as a Don Quixote reference.
Yeah, that's the best I could do. Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's character creation. That's what it is. It's looking at your stats and equipping shit and being like, oh, what build am I going to use? Like, I don't think I'm getting the DPS I should.
Oh my god, I love this series. I love everything about it. All right, let's talk about Eden Zero, chapter 182, Warrior Maid 95. And hey, the cover page has Couch Po on it. She's eating, because that's the only context she can exist in, unfortunately. We got over to the planet Leonard, which is what I'm continuing to call it regardless. As Ziggy,
it only gets funnier.
Yeah, as Ziggy has a conversation with God Aknoelia, who is like, yes, my children are standing in Shiki's way. He's like, your children? You mean like the dragons?
What else could she possibly mean? She is the mother of dragons! Ziggy! Do you not pay attention to what your friends do for a living?
So we get a flashback because Ziggy thinks about dragons, and he thinks about when him and young Shiki were staring off at space, and Shiki was like, oh, that star is moving. And he's like, you know what that is? It's a dragon. And it was a very inspiring moment. And she's like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I was just reminiscing about my son, how I'm about to kill him. And she's like, weird. But like, why are you gonna kill your kid? And he's like, oh, because I taught him to love robots and humans, and thus he has become the greatest threat to my universe. I will destroy him. We have a big action battle scene, which means nothing because space battles are incomprehensible in this series. Also, they do not explain dragons. They just say, yeah, they just say these dragons have thicker skins than the one at Dragonfall, which I had to stop. I was like, is Dragonfall a place that they went to in this series? Have we seen dragons before and I've forgotten? Is this series so incomprehensibly boring that nothing sticks anymore?
I mean, to be fair, I've talked a lot of shit about this series when I've been on this show, but like it's hard to do space battles. Even like Gundam and stuff in manga form is pretty incomprehensible because there's no like up or down, and it's hard to get like impact. I don't know. I feel bad for anyone trying to do space combat.
Yeah. Oh, it's awful. I mean, there's any kind of media has usually a lot of trouble depicting it. Video games historically have not been particularly great space battle games, movies.
X-Wing.
Yeah, I guess you got me there.
Rogue Squadron does whip, we have to admit.
Dragons blow up a bunch of LC ships, which should be very bad, except, I don't know, a character, I guess it's one of the ones who was on LC ship last time, just adds in, don't worry, they're unmanned. So, I guess...
Extreme,
okay,
that Superman movie?
Yeah, I can see their parachutes.
Yeah. It's okay for me to punch Doomsday through those buildings. They're all evacuated.
Yeah. Batman vs. Superman and Man of Steel both had that. Firing special anti-dragon ether cannons is shouted out, which is a hilarious statement. And these lasers just rip straight through dragons. And apparently that's a thing. You could just, like, anti-dragon destroy them. You could just do that. And Hermit sees this and is like, interesting. I shall reconstruct this on the fly so that our ships will have it. And Holy's like, you can't do that. It took so many years for us to do this. Hermit's like, done. And she activates it and transfers whatever the data to everyone else.
All right. So if it was this simple for Hermit to make anti-dragon weaponry, why didn't, when she just saw dragons, make anti-dragon weaponry?
She had to see the anti-dragon weaponry in action, Nick.
To get the data.
Exactly.
You have to have the data.
That's it, yeah.
And I love because Holy thinks to herself, what formidable children. They grow at such terrific speed.
Pretty sure Hermit's older than you.
I was going to say, she says, referring to the robot who just looks like she's a child. Like, Hermit's older than everyone else on the ship except the other robots. But there's like, oh, wow, there's too many. So, Hamura, it's time for you to get into this. And this is a chapter with no bath scene or anything like that. So I thought, like, wow, they were really progressive. But we do get a shot to at least establish that the spacesuit Hamura's in has a gigantic heart-shaped boob window cut out into it.
I mean, she can't properly swing her space sword without that. So
I assume that's for space reasons. Like, she didn't, like, gravity would get compressed or something like that and explode her heart.
You see, the less clothes you wear means that the less vibrations there are to interfere with you as you're tuning with the skates. I mean, the robot sword. So, yeah, it's very important not to wear any clothes if possible.
Exactly. So they go to explain that Hamura has a special ship, basically, that lets her just fight with a sword. Because, yeah, what else would she do? So that is the chapter name comes in. The warrior made 95 to arms, which actually has a kind of cool design to it, even though for some reason it has little high heels on it. But it looks a little bit like Valkyrie, which is a sweet little touch. So, yeah, Hamura just cuts a bunch of shit up. And that's the end of the chapter. They're like, cool, let's start Operation Planet Eater.
I mean, this is an easy one. Elder Dragon Grey Roll is the mother of dragons. That's obviously George R.R. Martin having a little fun there with his contribution to Elden Ring. So if you have the mother of dragons in your manga as well, that's the one you get. So
what is it on the scale though of Elden Ring?
I mean 6, I think. Okay. The Elder Dragon Grey Roll is not like a great fight. It's the dragon is so elderly it can't move, and so the way you beat it is by killing all his children, which is really sad.
Aww.
Although there is like there's a cheese strategy. If you have a bleed weapon, which does damage based on a percentage of health, you can cheese the main body, which is a great way to get way more runes than you should have at that level. Anyway.
Is that what you did? Does it have
no.
Oh, does it have like a special gimmick to it as well, like the Metal Gear game, where if you just wait long enough, the old dude dies?
Not that I'm aware. No, I played it like on launch before any like secrets have been found. Like I'm learning things now that other people have gotten into the game, so I'm sure more stuff like that's gonna come out. I bet there's a boss who has a stupid like trick like that.
There you go.
All right, let's talk about Akane-banashi, shall we?
Let's do it.
Story 4, Who Is That? Last time we saw Akane give her first public performance. It went off really well. We now are introduced to the Rakugoka who was late, requiring her performance to begin with. And he shows up just as Akane is finishing her performance. The audience is very, very pleased and is applauding her and stuff. She meets up with Giruka, who gives her some water, and she's really satisfied, even though she's tired afterwards. And then she says, like, hey, do you think the cafe owner will let me perform another story? And he's like, no, calm down. But then at that moment, Akane is glomped, basically, by the Rakugoka that we met outside. And he's just really enthusiastic. He's like, oh my God, that was a great performance. Are you, wow, you're younger than me, right? That's shocking. I love all the stuff that you were able to do in that story. Where do you usually perform? And Akane reacts to this person invading her personal space by headbutting him. Good for her. So, so the guy apologizes and he's like, I'm sorry. I just get really carried away whenever I meet an amazing new Rakugoka. And he starts carrying on again about her performance. And he's like, oh, but you had to take the stage in order to keep it warm for me. So I really owe you. So I know I'll let you watch my performance for free. Just consider it a lesson just for you. And Akane's like, who the fuck are you? What the hell is this arrogant bullshit that you're talking to me about? But Giruka assures him, no, you're actually going to want to see this because this guy is amazing. He became a second-rank Rakugoka after only his second year of apprenticeship at 19 years old, and he's really making a big splash right now. So you should see what he does. He might be obnoxious, but his Rakugo has an allure to it. And so the man takes the stage, and he starts to tell his story. And as he gets into the story, The Lesson Master, it is a story in which a man who has no looks or money wants to get lucky with the ladies. So he goes for singing lessons from a teacher in a humorous tale. But the thing that really stands out about it is when the performer performs as the woman in the story. He sounds very sweet and seductive, and when he sings in her voice, it's very angelic and amazing. But then he sings in the role of the guy who's gone to her for less. And there's this amazing expression that he makes, which has already been turned into an icon on our Discord server because it is a wonderful face. And it really sells just how terrible the singing is. It gets a big laugh out of the audience. And Giruka says to Akane, yeah, it's amazing how good he is. It's infuriating. And his talent lies in his gift of seduction, which seems to be further pushing the idea that the different Rakugoka in the series that we meet are going to have their very specific specialties, which helps them to stand out from each other. And he explains that because the guy is so good at acting out seductive characters, when he throws in a totally different character, it makes them, the contrast makes them seem even sillier and gets a big reaction out of people. His sultry female roles and wide-ranging talents are mere elements to accentuate the sexiness of his performance. And
this is how Austin has been described often on Dice.
I was literally waiting. I was going to say, are you guys relating to this at all? Because I feel like that's what we do.
Yeah. Sometimes I relate to this.
I actually really enjoy this series. I read it from the beginning because it's just started, and it's like, oh wow, I feel things. Yeah. I do voices into a crowd for amusement.
I guess that does have related into it. Yeah. His name is Kaisei Arakawa, by the way.
What is podcasting if not Rakugo, but without visuals?
This sounds stupid to say out loud, but I literally did have that thought. I was just like, I embody characters and I try to get laughs, and it's a whole thing. And it's like, you can't see my facial expressions, but like this is kind of an older form of the art form I do, and I'm relating and enjoying the series a lot. So yeah.
Kaisei is also notable as the only man that Isho Arakawa has raised to the rank of Futatsume since that fated promotion test where Akane's father got kicked out. After Kaisei's performance ends, Akane looks through the survey box for people's feedback about him, and she's just like, oh man, all the feedback's about him, and I feel like I did pretty good, kind of damn good. Kaisei then sneaks up on her and is like, oh, yeah, well, You know, were you curious about me? Is that why you're reading through all of my feedback and stuff? And then he asks her if she is one of Shigema's apprentices, and she says no, not yet. So he instead invites her to join him and become one of Isho Arakawa's pupils. But she immediately turns it down. And he's like, hey, I mean, I was being serious, you know. Like, you have a lot of potential for that to be your first ever public performance. And you're young, you've got style, and in the world of Rakugo, everything is determined by seniority. And that's why my master wants to bring about a revolution by gathering fresh, young talent. It's the perfect environment for us, where you could be appraised based on your work instead of how long you've been around. And you should join us, Akane. And Akane is like, yeah, I'm going to go become Master Shigema's pupil now. Bye!
Oh, what?
Well, you just said it yourself. As long as you have the talent, he'll recognize it.
Nick, we should start recapping this series in Rakugo, where we just do the different voices and pretend we're them.
Didn't we do that for other series? We could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just can't put Ace Attorney music behind it like we did back then, because now there are more eyes on us.
No. Instead, we could put in like public domain shamisen music or something.
Ooh,
so.
Or I could pantomime Ace Attorney music. Okay.
Chris,
Okay.
that might be distracting. Also, it's too perfect. You're gonna get us banned anyway.
An audio nightmare. This is obviously 10 out of 10 mimic tier. The boss who's made out of a fluid, which allows them to take on the appearance of your character. They're a shapeshifter. They can take on any character.
Like Dark Link.
Exactly like Dark Link. Yeah. I would give this Dark Link out of 10.
Ah, that's excellent. That's the best you can give it, because the Water Temple, as we've established on the show previously, is the best temple in Ocarina of Time.
It absolutely is. Yeah,
An insane opinion by people whose brains have been melted by manga.
It's got the best sub boss fight, and it has the best puzzles, and it makes you use the best weapon in the game.
Yeah.
I mean, you're too far gone. You've
great.
Once you've seen a certain amount of Eden Zero, you can no longer determine what is good and bad art.
Joke's on you. I've thought this since I was 8.
Yeah. All right, Nick, let's get into Diet World Trigger with Doron Dororon.
All right, so it's chapter 13, Toma Toda. Hey, it's a guy named Toma
Nick,
Toda.
before you start doing this, because we have so little interest in this series, Austin, can you describe what this chapter was about?
I was about to say you have active contempt for this.
It's not even active contempt. It's just I'm over here now. So.
I mean, I don't have the experience recapping like Nick does. I wouldn't try to copy your style, but I'll say there's a rivalry. A guy keeps getting punched, and then they talk about the mechanics of magic in their world, and they're like, "Oh, this technique should kill a human, but it's not. Oh, wow, you have a perfect relationship with your little thing that gives you power, and now we can do shonen fights." That's basically what happens.
Yeah,
so
pretty much.
To the last point that you made, I'm just going to skip to page 16 of this. So Dora's old rival, whom he beat up all the time, explains to him how being a samurai works and why he can't be a samurai without his own demon power. And he leaves. And the Kusanagi hops on Dora's head and solves their problems instantly.
It is a great moment of, I don't know, this series might be ending soon, because they're just like, how do I solve this problem? And the other character's like, oh, wait, I can just do it. And that's it.
He just hops on Dora's head. It's like, oh, now you've got power. Fuck this. This is lazy.
There are a couple of bosses in Elden Ring which are kind of this. So you can have your pick. I'll say Godskin Duo, which is one of them is no problem to fight, but they make you fight two of them at once, and it makes the fight infinitely harder in the Ornstein and Smo tradition. And that's kind of what this is. It's like, oh, you're one character? That's nothing. Oh no, two characters together?
What?
So I don't know. This just seems like a normal shonen story to me. Maybe I haven't been like sanded down the way you have.
That is the thing. This seems like a normal shonen story, and that's what it is. It is cafeteria food of shonen stories. It is technically edible. It is safe for consumption. There is no nutrition in it. It will not be grown anyway.
So there are kids out there who are growing up with it who will remember it fondly.
Yeah, before it gets canceled in 6 pages or chapters, whatever.
Damn.
Just on the note of your thing, did you ever see the one tweet that was like going up to a heterosexual couple being like, which one to use the orange sting and which one to use the smell?
Yeah, that's basically the way it is. Every one of these Souls games has a fight where it's just like, oh god, it's this couple. They're gonna try to come up to me and tell me that they admired me from across the bar and try to take me home with swords.
Nick,
a little bit lost now.
Let's talk about Earthchild Chapter 3.
So this wasn't in the list. This wasn't in the list of things you sent me because I was like, should I read this? But it wasn't in the list, so I didn't read this one.
I thought I did put that in there. Oh no, I didn't. I'm dumb. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll read it while you're recapping.
We shall meet at the Lagrange point.
ZZ Top activate.
I'm just gonna think about that song while I go through this.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I feel better. Please accompany us to Waste's Japan branch to identify Kareri Sawada. Those are the exact words that this chapter opens with. Identify Kareri Sawada. So, plain dude McDad husband is taking a place and they're talking about secrets and stuff. And they're like, wait a minute, identify her. That's how they talk about corpses. And so he's like, I guess I have to come to terms with the fact that my wife's dead. And the guy who got his throat crushed earlier because he tried to take the psychic baby away from a grieving father is like, not quite. Right now, she's in a rather unique situation. And they're in an observatory, and they're like, target is incoming. That's Kareri Sawada. And there's an asteroid flying through space that's roughly 2 human sizes, and Kareri's body is sticking out of it. She's been frozen in carbonite like Han Solo because she merged with a fragment of the asteroid she destroyed. Identify Kareri Sawada for us. Is that her?
We don't remember.
I'm reading this now as you're talking.
Can we get a shot of the other side of the asteroid? I'll be able to identify her that way. So he's like, yay, that's your mom, Mamoru. Oh no, space debris is going to hit the asteroid and blow it to bits because space debris is, she went in the ship that got destroyed and the asteroid blew up. There's tons of debris that she's flying through and stuff. And so she's like, well, we've got to get her down from there. And they're like, we would if we could, but it can't be done. We sent a rocket out there, but we can't send another rocket out there.
Yeah, bureaucracy says no, it would be a waste of resources. Us, secret government organization, can't afford that. Someone higher than us is like, no siree.
So they establish like, well, she might not be dead though. And the director guy's like, yes, that's why I brought you here. And debris is heading towards Kareri's head now. They're like, oh no, she's gonna die. Can't we do something? Oh no, Kareri! And then the debris arcs around her head just safely. And it's like, wait a minute, that wasn't a normal trajectory. And they're like, here's what HQ had to say. We won't allocate funds to retrieve an individual who is likely deceased. But think about it another way. If she were alive and we're still training Mamoru, what is there for them to protest? By the authority vested in me, Yuma Mackenzie Katagiri. That's a name and a half. As Japan's branch director, we have determined that this phenomenon, has preserved Kareri Sawada's life. Therefore, we will make her rescue our number 1 priority.
That's the most enjoyment I had in this chapter.
So why'd you bring him here then?
Because
did his presence there make the asteroid arc around her head? What the fuck? You could have determined that without him being there.
I assume, I don't know. It feels like this super secret organization is like functioning with like weird fucking legality to it, where they're like, look, you're her husband, so actually we need you there to identify the body as like next of kin or something like that. Where it's like you'd assume last week this organization was going to kidnap a child, so I would have assumed they would have just been like, yeah, she's alive, let's go get her. Like I don't know why they need the husband's permission to be like, yeah, that's her. Okay, got it.
So they make this whole big speech and they're like, we have also decided that your Earthchild needs you, a man determined to be his father. So will you work with us instead of the baby turning against us and wanting to murder all of humanity for taking his parents away from him? Join us in raising the greatest Earthchild the world's ever known. And Reisuke's like, yeah, this seems like a good person to trust. Gah! Shake hands. And then Reisuke is sentient now, can form completely cogent thoughts, and goes, even now I remember that moment. I felt the warmth within me, and I knew that this man who never left my side was my father. That's right, I understood the concept of parentage in this moment when I was like 3 months old. And then we get a bit where Reisuke takes Mamoru outside in order to look at the asteroid that is actually his mom, and then takes a selfie with quote unquote the three of them. And then he's like, one day we'll be able to take a picture together.
Got me a little emotional. I don't know why. I did think that was kind of a cute moment.
I might have thought the same if I didn't feel such blazing hatred for everything that it has to do with this manga. So
well, I'm also regularly taking estrogen, so that might have played into it.
Do you two hate this? I don't know. I'm not getting strong feelings off this series. Is this really rubbing you that badly?
This is good.
I've gone so far past not caring that I care deeply negatively about this.
I find this to just be a very strange series where I can't quite tell what we're going to be doing in it, because at first I was like, oh, it's going to be about like a love between her and him, and then she dies and they've already gotten married and had a kid. So I'm like, oh, I guess it's about this boring ass dude just trying to raise like a magic baby. But then by the end of this chapter, the baby's talking and kind of like seeming to indicate that he's the main character.
Oh, father.
I need a diaper change, please. So I don't really know what the plot of this series is. It's very confounding and confusing to me.
Yeah, I don't know. It feels like it's being written week to week by someone who's like, what do I want to focus on? Which is at least interesting.
There's a large growing conspiracy that the first chapter was essentially very similar to a one-shot that this series was published as, and then no one knew what to do afterwards. It's like, oh, you figured it out in the moment, I guess. Just keep going.
I mean, the mistake was
they didn't tell the mangaka about the fact that they were going to have a serialized series until like 3 weeks before the chapter was set to debut. And they're like, yeah, make a series out of it.
Yeah.
It seems like the mistake was having what seemed like the protagonists get into a relationship, because the rules of manga is that you can't get together until the last chapter. So if you have anyone successfully enter a relationship, it just completely torpedoes your whole thing. You have to have unrequited love only.
Yeah.
This is obviously
I hate that trope.
This
so
is
much.
Full-grown falling star beast, the boss who's like a comet who crashes into a mountain you find later in Elden Ring. I haven't gotten a lot of time to digest this chapter. I literally just read it, so that's my that's my first thought. Because she's a rock in space.
There you go.
Obviously, Kareri would have been perfectly fine if after they decided they were going to get married, they were like, okay, but we won't see each other until I'm a successful voice actress and you're a successful mangaka. And then we'll get married after our anime debuts.
I guess, yeah, I mean, they just want it to be relatable to the demographic who's never been in a relationship, I guess. But I'm old. I always want to see people argue about doing the dishes or whatever.
The cat is not drinking out of the toilet, I swear.
I'm like, oh, it's me. It's me.
All right.
Even more than the Rakugo one. You're still just like, I'm in that manga, me.
Yeah, if she ends up in a relationship and she keeps leaving her clothes on the floor, it'll be my favorite manga of all time.
All right.
We love Joa.
Chris, I've got a puzzle for you.
Nick, I have a puzzle for you then too.
Okay, why don't you go first?
Okay. Professional pratfaller perfectly portrays pretentious partner. And partner is in quotes. professional pratfaller perfectly portrays pretentious partner. Partners in quotes.
Partner.
Yeah.
That part is actually really throwing me. So you say professional pratfaller, and my first instinct is actually Ric Flair.
Okay.
Perfectly portrays partner. Also, when you say perfectly, it makes me think of Mr. Perfect, who did do a lot of backflip bumps and stuff. Oh. Perfectly portrays professional partner?
Professional pratfaller perfectly portrays pretentious partner.
Pretentious partner. Oh. Now I just have to think of all the pretentious characters. I give up. I don't know.
I would say focus on the pratfaller part. So what is a pratfall?
It's you fall over comedically.
Like an intentional fall.
Okay. So like a slapstick fall.
Someone who intentionally fell.
Okay.
Perfectly portraying a partner.
A pretentious partner. Is this wrestling related?
Yes.
At all?
Yes.
It is. It is.
Yes.
Okay. Because it's making me think of like comic acts.
This is specifically this person's gimmick.
Professional pratfaller. Perfectly portrays pretentious partner.
And partners in quotes.
Oh.
We do have like 6 series to go through, so I'll just give you the answer at this point. It's Damien Sandow.
Oh,
as the stunt double for The Miz.
Nice. Okay. All right. Here's mine for you.
Funakai. No, I'm going to wait. No. Funakai. Damn it.
Okay.
I knew it was coming and it still got me.
I'm blown away by the elegance of yours. This one was really forced, but I wanted to do this act, so forgive me. Pelvis pivoter parades pristine performances pointlessly.
Is it Ziggler?
Yes.
Okay, because I was gonna say it used to come out as like different. I was like, who fucking pelvic thrusts all the time? I was like, it's either Shawn Michaels or Ziggler.
Yeah, I'm glad you got it from that. I was specifically referring to how he would brag about having the best matches when he would always lose those matches.
Oh, I thought the other part was referring to when he had like a gimmick for a little bit where he'd come out to other people's entrances.
No, I deliberately omitted that from my memory. That was stupid.
All right, now let's talk about actual PPPPPPP because I want to hear what Austin rates this on his Elden Ring scale.
Chapter 23, Hope in the Night Sky. Lucky is invoking childhood memories for his audience in this contest performance, and he's gotten to the point where his father slapped him across the face while saying the Otogami have no need for mediocrity. And various people in the audience react to this slap as if they themselves have been struck. I think that the idea that you're supposed to get is that not everyone experiences it directly this way, but there are a few important people that we see reacting this way. And then we see Lucky's conversation regarding all of this stuff, and the one expert guy whose name I refuse to memorize is talking to him. Is like, hey, if you revealed that they're septuplets of the Otogami family instead of sextuplets, then the media is going to look into it and won't Gakwan Otogami-banashi when he finds out. But Lucky's saying like, well, I mean, if I reveal a secret, then Dad'll be in trouble, and I hope that it'll help Furusu feel better about her mom. And the guy's like, well, no, because when it comes to Furusu, the Otogamis haven't done anything wrong other than Mimin breaking the rules. Her mother wasn't banished. She lost because she was lacking in ability. The way her mother handled losing was weak. So instead of seeking vengeance, wouldn't you rather just do what you want? Wouldn't that be better? So, and there's this whole thing about like the death of the author basically in this speech about stuff and how you're supposed to, perform stuff in a certain way. Because like, hey, look, Scrab and the original composer isn't here anymore. After the pianist shows respect to the composer, all they can do is play the music as if it's their own. So as Lucky plays and continues taking people through stuff, it gets to the point where, his family is separated. He's taken by his mother and the rest of his siblings go with his father. And he thinks to himself, I don't think this will make Furusu happy, but I want her to know that despite being abandoned and losing the things I loved, and the things that we see that he loved, just hang out with his siblings, which is very sad.
I love the visual imagery of seeing that shot of like his family, and then it cuts to the Sunset Titan and then the piano trees, which are like the two emblematic ways that we've seen his siblings up to this point when they play music.
And he reaches out for them and he says to himself, I want her to see that I can still play the piano and chase after them. And that makes me really happy. Even if you're sad, you can still find hope. But he finds that as he gets to this point in the performance, he's really struggling to actually make it visualize, and he can't express all of the experiences that he's had just through this playing. And he starts to falter as he plays and finishes. But Furusu is very clearly struck by this. It apparently has also had a deep effect on Mimin. And Lucky is ultimately pleased that he's like, yeah, well, next time I'll do more. And this is a lot of fun. I love playing the piano. I was like, yeah, this is nice. Just like he's not all the way there yet, but he's really enjoying getting better. And that's nice. Mm-hmm. Mimin turns and leaves, and she thinks to herself, it was different from how he used to play, but he was doing it so happily, just like back then. And she looks so in the emotion that she's in that she appears to age like 10 years in this one frame. So a bunch of the judges are like, wow, that's did I just see like that there were like 7 Otogami siblings? I'm gonna go look into that. And some of the journalists walk off. Dada Sensei talks with Sonoda, that's their name. And they're like, oh yeah, he tried to create a fantasy like that and stuff. That was crazy. And the sensei realizes if that's possible, that would be even beyond what I did to win against Gakuan Otogami, which sounds like a humble brag to himself.
Yeah, I was like, that seems weird to note that out loud, or I guess to yourself rather.
Yeah. Lucky meets up with Furusu afterwards, and Furusu says, "You weren't able to completely express what you wanted to, were you?" And before he can answer her, she says, "I thought you'd be able to do more. I love amazing performances. I actually love the Otogami's performances. I figured if I was competing against them, I shouldn't be amazed by their playing. But listening to your performance after I lost, I thought it was amazing. But I know you can play even more amazingly, and I want to hear that. I can't compete here anymore, but would you mind if I helped out? Will you be my hope? Let's win against Mimin Otogami together." Full chapter.
Yeah. It's good stuff, you know? I like the art in this series a lot. I like the motivations. I love the little moment of Lucky kind of seeing his progression. I love the artistic angle of like portraying the siblings as their sort of signature musical piece through imagery. Austin, where does this rank on an Elden Ring scale?
So the soundtrack of Elden Ring is very choral. I don't know that there's a lot of piano in it. I had to go back and listen to it. Like Dark Souls 1 had a lot of piano in it, I feel like. This composer also worked on Bloodborne. She's very good. So the musical angle is what occurs to me first. But also, I mean, Elden Ring is a story about family ultimately and sibling rivalry. It's got a lot of kismet with PPPPPP.
Is it? I haven't listened to the oh god, I forget the YouTuber's name. If you just type in like fucking,
is it Vati Vidya?
Yeah, that's it. I was like, it's the dude with the voice that like I want to die to. To describe it, like it really eases me into that next realm.
I actually don't watch his videos because I can read, which apparently a lot of people who play these games can't. You can just read what the people say in the game and they'll tell you the story. But yeah, George R. R. Martin's main contribution to the plot is to make this family and all of them. They all have very similar names. There's like Michaela and Millennia. There's Godric and Godfrey. It's like I think it's supposed to be confusing, but there's all these siblings.
Dostoevsky.
Yes, it's basically Dostoevsky. The Elden Ring is. It's, I would say, a 1-to-1 exact retelling.
Much like PPP is as well.
Yeah, it's all one story. There's really only one story. Philosophers call it the Dostoevsky PPPPP paradigm. So I guess you could pick any boss who's a member of the main family and say it represents the family drama in PPPPPP. But I think the main sibling relationship of Millennia and Michaela would probably be best. Michaela isn't actually fought in the game, but Millennia is. She's also the hardest boss in the game because even if you block her attacks, she heals on every strike. So that's kind of like playing the hardest piano piece, is like perfectly timing that fight. So I'm going to go with Millennia, Blade of Michaela, as the boss that best represents PPPPPP.
Great analysis. 10 out of 10. I love it.
Thank you.
Nick, for the last time ever,
Yeah.
it's time to get stoned.
Unless there's like a little side sequel,
I won't read it.
epilogue chapter.
I refuse it. I said this was the final time, and that's it.
Okay. And no more getting stoned.
I'm
You heard
like
it
the
here.
penguin in Oswald. No more, no less. I'm done now.
There's nothing stopping you from busting out the "let's get stoned" if someone shows up with a blunt again, like in that earlier
True.
series. Time to get stoned every time someone hits the J.
Oh man, that'd be the best.
So we get the end of Star Fox 64, where everyone comes back.
That's
from
the
space
best.
mission.
Can we talk? Hold on, just a tangent. Can we talk about how fucking much the Star Trek 64 ending ruled? The fucking music score. I'm gonna hear that like till the day I die. Oh, it's so good. And all of you just running in the distance as the Great Fox comes up over the horizon behind you in a shadow. It's fucking perfect. Video games have never been better, I guess, except Elden Ring, because I have to say that or Austin will leave the podcast.
I think they're
And then
roughly
if
equal.
you don't kill the real Andros, his face shows up and it goes doon doon doon.
I just thought that always happened because I never beat the game on hard mode.
Star Fox is legit way harder than Elden Ring.
Yeah.
It's not really close. I don't
Slippy.
Look, just never get into all range mode, okay?
All
I think it's
right.
impossible because yes, it's possible because both stage 6s have an all range component. Anyway, so
Can't call him Game Facts, Nick.
So, Senku and company get back from the space mission. There are nice little details that I like the fact that when they land in the ocean, Senku starts fishing because why not? And the Kohaku is asleep during the medal presentation ceremony where it's like, yay, we saved all of humanity. He's just like, bored. So, and then everyone gets back together with their friends. Senku high fives Taiju and Yuzuriha and Kaseki. Yay!
He doesn't. I don't think he shows up again throughout the chapter, other than like in a cameo. And I was really glad because I was like, if they kill Kaseki, I'm gonna fucking lose my shit all over this manga, and I'm gonna really embarrass myself in front of Austin, just sobbing and screaming.
And we just get our final, our big color 2-page spread. By the way, the first several chapters are basically almost no dialogue and in color, which is really, really nice to see as a send-off. And 2-page spread, final chapter. Dr. Stone is the chapter title. Time skip to several years later, basically to see how humanity is progressing. We see that Gen has become a translator / ambassador kind of person, which makes sense given all of his different skills. But then he goes to rejoin everyone in the Kingdom of Science, and he just goes back from wearing a suit to wearing his old clothes. And he's like, I'm just really comfortable in this now, which is kind of sweet. And he has come back and is being driven by Francois, which I believe is like Francois' only appearance in the chapter. And Gen has come to attend Taiju and Yuzuriha's wedding. Yay! They finally got together and tied the knot and stuff. And their parents are there. And it's really weird because they're clearly just like old Taiju and old Yuzuriha.
Yes. It's very unnerving. I'm like, because they both are going up to her, and I'm like, did her dad also look identical to Taiju, basically? Because that's a lot to unpack at that point.
Let's not get into the electric complex nature of this. Okay, so we just see little bits of different characters celebrating in different ways and stuff. It's nice. And then Kohaku kind of snidely turns to Ruri and is like, hey, what about you and Chrome? And Ryu's like, oh, yeah, about that. And apparently Chrome just like really casually is like, hey, after our project's all wrapped up, let's get married. And she's like, okay, which is actually really sweet in its own way. But Kohaku and Luna are horrified by this. It's like, God, they're both awful. Tsukasa says that, this is great, the way that things have progressed, because, Hyoga and Zeno and I once bloodied our hands to prevent the rebirth of the old world. But at this point, the idea of such a grim future is a distant memory. That's right. Now that this has happened, humanity will actually be peaceful. Please. So, then we see, I don't know what happened here. So
Senku's doing really well in his transition. I'm so proud of her.
Luke runs off to go and celebrate with his bestie and goes into the science lab where Senku still is. I assume that Senku attended the first day of the wedding because it's established that the wedding has lasted so long that it's 2 days so that more people could attend. It was a very nice measure by Taiju and Yuzuriha. So Taiju goes to bring Senku some cake and approaches Senku, quote unquote, from behind, and they turn around and it's a woman. And it's just a woman that Taiju mistook for Senku. I guess. Because Senku is elsewhere in the lab, and I don't think it's ever established who this person is. So
she just looks exactly like Senku. Maybe it's actually
like
it might be. We never found out who Senku's biological father is. Maybe he eventually had another kid, and this is her.
Maybe. I don't know. So Taiju rushes into the place where Senku actually is with cake and is like, hey, look, I'm finally married to Yuzuriha. And Yuzuriha's like, you said the same thing yesterday. But I was like, oh, that man of mine. Senku is still really focused on his work. And he's like, well, I'm cheering you really hard here from here in the science lab. So hard that my vocal cords are snapped. Wait a minute. This sounds exactly like what I said to you in chapter 1. Hey, it's a bookending thing. Taiju brought cake. And Gen, of course, has been brought there too. And he's looking around like, what's this ridiculous machine that you've been working on? And so they're like, yes. So, well, Y-Man says, returning to the past to prevent incursion upon your Earth will avert numerous deaths of my kind. And they're like, you're making a fucking time machine? Yeah. And Ukyo looks on this giant machine that they have made, and tears come to his eyes as he says, 21st century logic told us it couldn't be done, but maybe, just maybe, our grand goal could be realized. Like by shooting the Petra beam into the past to petrify the victims before they met their fates. Maybe we could save them, all 7 billion members of humanity. And there's a shot of the original space station crew looking forward towards Senku in a vision. And they get this whole thing of like, yeah, this is the goal we're working towards. It's the last science map of the series. We're going to make a fucking time machine. That's right. I don't think that everyone's thought through the ramifications of preventing the disaster. But everyone's like, yeah, this could potentially happen. Humanity, one painstaking step at a time. We can build a time machine over decades, centuries, even if it takes millennia. But then, the paradox, guys. So Senku says, science pierces across time itself to discover and unearth new rules about our universe. So I say, get excited. And that's the note we end the chapter on. It's pretty crazy. It is perfectly in line with the ethos of Dr. Stone and the mood of Dr. Stone. I, again, don't think everyone's thought through the proper ramifications of, killing all the Stone Age people that they've met. But
I mean, just the paradox. If you go back and change things, then you'll never make the time machine, and then everyone disappears into a wormhole. Good job.
But that's not science saving everybody, God damn it. So,
No, it's about the feeling. You start in the Stone Age, you go to the moon, you get everything, the great arc, and then you're like, but what about the future? We got to leave off on this note that there's still more to explore. Like, it makes emotional sense. And endings are hard. I feel like this, it's about as good as you can expect, and kind of puts a bow on this whole thing.
Yeah, I for Dr. Stone, which is a series that has never directly really addressed much of the logistics of what they're trying to do, other than to say like science kind of rules. I thought this was a good ending because, like, I mean, like Tsukasa has his whole speech just about like, oh, like humanity is finally like moving towards a point where we're entering away from the grim future we had before, and it's like, yeah, because I guess we're just gonna accept in this reality that fucking there's no conflicts anymore because everyone's just universally accepted science rules and we should follow it, and there's no grudges anymore or issues. There's nothing. It's a utopia, man.
It's very politically convenient.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it hits the exact right mood for a Dr. Stone ending. Like the general feel is, yeah, that is perfectly accurate. As like a fan of this series, obviously I have my little things that I was kind of like hoping to get some closure on, but knew that we wouldn't get closure on them. Like we get closure on Taiju and Yuzuriha, good. Yes. That was set up in chapter 1. We kind of needed that. So like, yes, they did actually get together after putting it off. Chrome and Ruri, okay,
sure. Whatever,
sure, but so like I kind of had like 3 other couples or potential couples I was more invested in.
And Stanley, what the fuck? Why is there not their gay wedding here? God damn it.
Francois and Ryusui.
Yeah.
Even like Kohaku and Senku, there was like little hints to that here and there. I know that would be completely out of character for them to like focus on that in any way, shape, or form. But still, I was like, Chrome and Ruri, all right, fine.
I'm glad they didn't do anything with Senku because it does continue to add to the interpretation that Senku is ace, which is a very valid reasoning and reading of that character. But it was like one of these things where like fucking in the last moment we couldn't just have fucking like Stanley and Zeno like with wedding rings on or something like that. Like, come on, like let's not fucking pussyfoot around this. All right, just give us what we want. God damn it, you cowards!
Hang on. I'm gonna zoom in on the frame of Stanley and Yo shooting guns together to see if I can see a ring on his finger. Hang on.
Okay.
The gun's too big. Damn it.
Damn.
So
that's always been the issue.
I mean, the last interaction we had between the two of them was Stanley lovingly cupping Zeno's cheek. So
that is true. I will say,
can't convince me
in comparison to the previous Inagaki series, I liked Ice Shield 21's like actual ending chapter better than this one, just because it was a little bit more like fun, kind of like here's to the future. But again, that was also just about high school football. This is a much more like, what if we could stop every death ever?
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of art forms, the ending is like the most important part because it like resonates backwards through the whole work. Because like you just see how like the themes
like a time machine.
Out. Yeah, like a time machine. But it's like, it's like if you're building a theme or an idea or a motif, like how it ends set is like the statement about what you tried to say the whole time. And it's like you can't judge the whole work without it. And manga so often, goes on forever or gets canceled abruptly that a few of them get to end in like a truly satisfying way. And I feel like this is about as good an ending as a person could have gotten out of the story. So it's actually pretty impressive. All told, I think.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Where does it rank on the Elden Ring scale?
I've got qualms about it. But they are minor.
On the Elden Ring scale, so I can't say the full name of the boss because it might be a spoiler, but there's a character whose title is the All-Knowing, and I mean that's Dr. Stone right there. And there's some implications that I can't get into also that tie in thematically with the hubris of the ending because what they're trying to do does not maybe shake out the best for everyone, but who knows? They've solved all politics. So
Austin, can I pay you money to have you record you talking about the different Elden Ring bosses, and you can just replace that YouTuber for me, basically?
There are like 90. There's so many bosses.
All the payment plan will be in effect. We'll be fine. I'm good for it.
Yeah, that's why they call you Sir Deep Pockets.
Yeah.
that's how you're known on the street.
Mr. Monies, yep. Anyway, let's talk about Mashle, Magic and Muscles, Chapter 99, Mash Burned, the powerful duo. Yet again, we have Austin on a chapter where Mashle isn't funny. So
I am cursing this series. I keep hearing it's the funniest series. You laugh until you'll be sick. Your sides will split, and then every time I'm invited on, it's just like a grim punch fest.
Yeah. Innocent Zero shows up. Domino's like, this is pretty scary. Innocent Zero's like, I've decided to come here myself, which is amusing because the last time you were here was also when Innocent Zero showed up. So for you, this character is just always in this series.
I am his Galactus. I am his herald.
So Domino is apologizing, and Innocent Zero's like, you don't have to. You tried your best. Rest easy now. For I have no shortage of replacements for you. You are no longer useful to me, which is pretty fucking dark. Mash goes up, tries to kick him in the face. He's like, that's not nice. He's like, by now you shouldn't be able to stop me. Like, it's incomprehensible. No, standing against me will accomplish nothing. All you're doing is chipping away at yourself. And Mash goes, oh, there's a nice compliment. And he's like, I'm calling you an idiot. And, oh, darn.
Why did he think it was a compliment?
I have no idea why he took it as a compliment, but he did. Innocent Zero gives a big speech about how fear is everything, and it's why we live the way we live, and it's about killing, and how he wishes to live more than anything, free of decrepitude. Death will never claim him. That is his true enemy. I will give up everything for the sake of my dream. That means you, Mash Burndead, as well as your friends and family. I will take them away for my sake. A life with no disguises. What could be more perfect? And Mash removes his weights, which I guess is just a thing now. He's just going to remove them when things get real. And he goes and he fucking starts beating the shit out of Innocent Zero, just really wailing on him. And then all of a sudden, Innocent Zero's behind him. And Mash has his weights back on. And he's like, how'd that happen? And Innocent Zero's like, you cannot defeat me. And another character says, someone's having fun. Innocent Zero says, you're late, Doom. And it's Doom, the oldest of the Mash siblings. And
oh my god, it's Renji.
Yeah, Doom apparently is going to handle the rest of this fight with his gigantic half-destroyed Buster Sword. And we don't know this character's full name, but the fact that he's Doom does get me back on track of like, yeah, okay, Mashl's getting back with those fucking awesome-ass character names. I hope this guy's name is like Doom Laser Sword.
Oh, from the Hampton Laser Sword family.
Yeah. Yep.
Do you think that's too direct a parallel to that famous Naruto scene where he drops the weights? Like, I get that it's like an homage, but I feel like it's exactly the same.
Not just, well, I mean, we made the Rock Lee reference last time, but honestly, like, that goes back to Dragon Ball and possibly older. So
okay. I'm not as well versed in all this, but to me, I was like, there's a line between homage and just like doing the thing, and I was like, I don't know how I feel about this.
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely just like a shonen thing. I think the Rock Lee thing is definitely where I shouldn't say, I shouldn't assume what Komodo is doing, but I feel like that's probably in the age range where that might be the thing that's being referenced more than anything else. And I don't know, Mashle was also like a very thinly skinned Harry Potter ripoff, so the idea that it just deliberately lifts from other things too doesn't surprise me. It does it in an awesome way, so I can't be angry.
Yeah, I mean, if your series is already, it's like, yeah, we're just kind of doing a best of compilation of dope shit, then yeah, I guess that's cooler. Yeah. The Elden Ring scale here is very easy because a character in the game gives this exact speech where they say, you really tried your best, rest easy now, you're no longer of use to me. This is a character, Horoa Lux, near the end of the game, gives this exact speech before they do some real muscle shit. Some very Mashle shit, because the whole game is like people with like super magic. And then there's this guy who's like, my power is I punch super hard and I'm like buff. And that's like, it's just Mashle. The Mashle shows up at the end of this game. I guess he's the one who gives the speech, which isn't quite exactly the same, but
it fits. Yeah, it fits. I get it.
It's close enough. So
exactly.
All right. The Elusive Samurai, Chapter 53, Wicked, 1335. Last time, Takauchi drooled in Kiyohara's mouth, and it's making him twitch and writhe and spasm on the ground. And Takauchi is pleased by the effect that this is having on him. Then Moronao, one of his men, is like, yeah, so according to the Tengu, there weren't any signs of large-scale resistance from the people to the Mikado. And also, Doyo, the priest guy, that says, the warriors of Shinano are fierce. Sadamune and the court nobles who dabble in warfare can't defeat them. The other day, I seduced a lady of the court, just drops that in there casually, so I could ransack a storehouse, and I found something interesting that I would like to use. Remember that a few chapters ago it was established that storehouses were being used to pass on information to different men under the premise that they were being burgled. So he goes off to deal with this situation, and as he walks out into the sun, he's like, "Oh, the sunlight is washing my heart clean." But even though sun is hitting him directly in the face, his face is still covered in shadows. And Morin now says, "Even in direct sunlight, I can't read his facial expressions. He is a wicked man." So, yeah, another typical. Not typical, but like another Elusive Samurai character who has an absurd kind of appearance to belie their character. So he goes home and he runs into Mima, who is his daughter, and he rubs cheeks with her affectionately and is really happy to see her. But she's like, "Well, you're as unreadable as ever, Dad." They dine together, and they make a thing because he recites a poem and he says, "Yeah, that's a poem about a crab that goes to help the Mikado and gets eaten instead." Mima talks about how she met Tokiyuki, doesn't know his name, of course, and she's like, "Yeah, I thought he was really impressive, so I'm going to show him around." Sorry, Doyo says, "What if the boy is an enemy spy?" And he was like, "I'll kill him then. Chopped up and ground into paste." And he's just like, "Yeah, that's great." And they have a weird poking each other in the face celebration. It's weird. The next day, Mima goes to meet up with Tokiyuki and the others, and she's like, "Hey, yeah, we're gonna keep on sightseeing." Fubuki has met up with them. This time because he was working the day before, and she's like, "Oh, yeah, so her father is Sasaki Doyo then. He's a talented general, and he now serves as a counselor to Takauji. And if you ask it of me, I will use her to get close to Doyo and find a way to take Takauji's head." And Tokiyuki's like, "Nah, you put yourself in danger, and I don't want to betray her friendship. He's too pure, I swear." They go off to ride somewhere, and Mima wants to ride on the same horse as Tokiyuki, and Ayako just grabs her. Is like, "No, you're riding with me." Yeah. And she holds her between two fingers too. Yeah. They go sightseeing for a bit. We see just them going to different locations. Gemba goes diving in the little stream. I don't think he should do that. And then they get to a temple to go check out some stuff there. We also get the explanation that Kinkakuji didn't exist yet, which I would have been so frustrated if I didn't know that. I don't know Japanese landmarks very well. I don't know. So then Mima is chatting with the other girls, and she's like, "What do you like about your lord?" And they're like, "Oh, he's kind." "Oh, come on. The boy's got to stimulate you." All right. So they're 12. So
and people grew up a lot faster back then.
Yeah, well, they had to. They died much earlier. So they get embarrassed and they admit that they like the fact that he's really, really cool when he runs away from stuff. Which is that's the series, yes. So Fubuki mentions that the Mikado have a bad reputation in the area. Mima says that the Emperor has an excessive ability. He can't understand ordinary or incompetent people, so he decides everything himself. The Mikado would look positively heroic if he had one capable retainer who understood both him and the people, which sounds like foreshadowing, honestly. The day passes, they part again, and Mima asks how long they're going to be in Kyo, and Tokyo's like, "I don't really know." So she says, "Hey, do you want to be my father's officer? It's better than, being a guard for Suwa." Tokiyuki goes to meet with his uncle, who is dressed up like a carpenter, and his uncle whispers to him, "We're ready for war, so I'll tell you the plan." And the guy that they came to meet with, whose name I've already forgotten, Kinmune Kyo, I guess, is like, "Yeah, so I guess we could share the plan with them." And so they go into Sayonji Kyo's new residence, and Tokiyuki Sango says that he's been making alterations to it, and they say that they're going to hold a banquet there. And so it's lucky to take the first bath in a new home. We will recommend it to the emperor. When he enters the dressing room, ha! It drops into a pit full of swords, and we'll kill him. That's the chapter.
There you go.
A very dramatic ending, but all I can think of is that scene where they're poking each other in the face with Crab. I want you, next time you come over to my place, Chris, can we do this with 0 bars?
Yes.
You've left. There's so many 0 bars in my house because of you. I just want to eat them with you, and we can just poke each other in the face celebratorily.
Can we do that and watch Lost?
Of course, anything for you.
I'm gonna make plans now. You can't stop me. I'm gonna come to your house and we'll eat 0 bars and watch Lost, and then presumably die because I have reached heaven at that point.
That's all you ever wanted.
Yeah.
In a chapter centered
Pennsylvania, God damn it.
in a chapter centered on a guy with a weird face, I think Elden Ring scale is obvious. This is a 8 out of 10. It's a worm face, the name of a boss. And Kismet again. I spent the entire boss fight running away from Worm Face, which really fits in. It's because you can ride your horse. You can't ride your horse in every boss fight, maybe not even a majority of them. So when you can, and he has like an instant death radius all around him, Worm Face does. So I spent the whole fight running and only coming back to give him a little bap every once in a while. The most elusive samurai fight in the game, definitely.
All right, let's move on over to Black Clover, page 325, Dark Starry Night. And we're going to go real quick through this one because we still have One Piece, which is, of course, 1,000 hours of content to discuss. So Black Clover, the devil, fucking Lucifero, just blows everything up. He's like, fuck you, you guys suck, you guys blow. Yami announces we have to stop him, get him before he strips us naked, you idiots, which is a weird phrase to use.
It's a weird way of looking at it, but okay.
Yeah. Asta goes into his devil union, goes for the attack, but Lucifero just dodges it and is like, you are the most dangerous one to kill, or the dangerous one, and yet the easiest to kill. What a quandary. And then just fucking goes to murk the shit out of him. But Yami blocks it, and Yuno has a moment where he has to teleport Yami aside because Yami's arm essentially gets like super fucking messed up blocking that attack. Yuno has a moment where he's like, I can't use stars with both people at this point. I have to pick one person to rely on between Yami or Asta. Who's it going to be? And I would have lost this bet. Nature Boy Fair comes up, does a bunch of combat stuff, and hey, it turns out Yami is going to be the one Yuno focuses on because he's placing all of his faith on the one with Captain Vange's sword. I'm betting on him. So we see Asta's there. Yuno's going to help kind of mess with things, and Yami's going to be, presumably come in from the back or something like that.
Yeah, it seems like a big climactic moment in the fight is coming up from here. It is interesting to see how this is going to unfold. I think that parts of this are a little bit hard to follow, as some parts of Black Clover are, but in the general idea of how things are going, yeah, I got the impression of like this really tense moment with all the strongest characters in the series all trying to fight each other. So, yeah.
Is it supposed to be funny that the character is named Lucifero? That cracks me up. It's such an edgy name.
It's me, Lucifero.
For the Elden Ring scale, it's 4 out of 10. It's Moog, Lord of Blood, who has the edgiest name in Elden Ring, the Lord of Blood, just like Lucifero. It's just all edge.
It's a bummer you couldn't have read the chapter like 2 weeks ago or whatever, where Lucifero finally acknowledges humans as existence, and he's like, I will murder you now, like so happily.
I will kill all of you. I will kill your friends, your families, your entire species. And it's like, because I acknowledge you. It's like, yeah, this guy's pretty cool. So I'm still waiting for that little demon to do something, because
it's like the Simpsons joke.
It's the Simpsons. This boy's like, but Marge, that little demon's gonna do something soon.
This chapter's gonna end. The series will end, and it'll just be a bunch of crazy cool sound effects. Like, oh.
All right. One Piece, chapter 1042. The victor needs no epithet. Pretty badass.
That's pretty cool.
So X-Drake fought a CP0 guy and stabbed him through the back. And the guy's like, what the fuck, X-Drake? And X-Drake's like, my justice tells me to do this. And the CP0 guy says, then I am envious of you. Ha! Flash step, shoot you in the face. You suck, X-Drake.
It's the greatest sequence. It's like, the CP0 sucks. This dude sucks. X-Drake sucks. Everyone came out of this situation somehow the worse.
We cut down.
It's like when 6 jobbers have a Royal Rumble against each other, and you're like, I guess one of them had to win, but...
Which of us is going to lose our non-title bout that this earns us? So we cut down the flower capital rather briefly to see that the crowd is setting off the lanterns. There has been this theory going on that Luffy is going to see the lanterns floating up and will get a big burst of confidence and beat Kaido, and the timing of that seems to match up with what else happens in this chapter. So meanwhile, Luffy is punching the fuck out of Kaido. He's using his Snake Man to attack him from all different directions, bending the trajectory as he does so, and Kaido's just like, stop it! Stop! And he's still drunk as well. Kaido can use his haki, of course, to predict the future, and then he's like, well, what if I try copying you? And so he transforms into his dragon form so he can be all serpenty and bendy as well, and he evades Luffy's punches, and then just fucking bites him. Yay! And then, he... Alright, so you have to understand something, Austin.
Uh-huh.
We have this joke on the podcast. The Germans are in divorce.
Oh, I've listened to the podcast. I'm aware.
Okay. So he half swallows Luffy and flies way up in the air.
Yummy!
And then, as Luffy is like, let me out, he spits out Luffy and in the same moment shoots blast breath and knocks Luffy into the ground.
Goes on tight.
That blast breath goes all the way down through the island. We see that it even reaches where Yamato is. So another hole's been blown through the island, and Luffy falls down through it. But then he takes his bounce man form, and of course, this way he could just bounce his way through the air because that's how rubber works. Mm-hmm. And he's like, shit, I'm running out of time on Gear 4. I've got to beat him. Losing's not an option. He flies back up to where Kaido is, and he says, as long as you're around, the people of Wano won't even have clean water to drink. So he gets his big, massive gum attack ready, and Kaido's like, you're free to take sides however you wish, but let me tell you, these Wano folk have accepted defeat into their hearts. Weaklings who shun violence, casualties who vowed glory in death. I've seen plenty of the losers and vanquished here, and they all have their excuses. And Luffy says, shut up! Samurai are awesome! Fuck you! They're so cool! Kaido gets a blast breath ready, and he says, strong or just stubborn? The victor needs no epithet, so which are you? And Luffy punches him in the fucking jaw while he's getting his blast breath ready and explodes in his mouth, which is fucking awesome.
That is pretty fucking rad.
Kaido starts to fall backwards. Luffy goes in and gets ready to try and finish him off, but Kaido announces Thunder Bellow as he does so and comes in out through the smoke in his humanoid form again, hits him with a Bagua again. It knocks the steam out of Luffy, and he starts to lose his strength. He's like, no, don't leave me. I've got to beat him. And if this doesn't, I've got to hit him one more time. If this doesn't work, then I've lost. And he prepares his final gum attack while Kaido lunges in with his club. And Kaido declares, show me what you've got, boy. And he gets another Thunder Bellow over Bagua already. Or maybe Luffy's doing... No, Luffy's doing the over. Whatever. They're both shouting. And they're shouting attack names. It's shonen. But then, as Luffy gets his big, massive fist ready, that fucking CP0 agent comes and grabs him around the shoulder and stops him from punching forward. And Kaido hits Luffy in the fucking face with the club and drives him towards the ground. And Kaido looks really upset about this because their awesome fight got interrupted. And Luffy looks really... hit in the face with a club about this.
He doesn't have any complex thoughts beyond ouch.
And the CB0 is like, ha! I ruined the fight, and that's the end of the chapter.
It's a great end. I don't know where we're gonna go from here, but it is a great callback to Kaido beating Odin because of Momonosuke being held hostage, and him feeling like he had that fight robbed from him, and this similar moment happening here. So I'm very curious to see where we go. I'll be very annoyed if Luffy just gets back up because he's spent like the last 3 chapters being like, if I don't beat you here, like this is the last Gear 4, I can't do it again. So I don't know what happened. So I'll be very curious to see what they're gonna do from here.
Yeah.
Austin, was this chapter comprehensible to you in any way, shape, or form?
I mean, yeah, the basic outline of it. I didn't get all the nuance of it. I do listen to this show that I'm on currently, although I don't read every One Piece. So there's a lot of little details. I gotta say, on the Elden Ring scale, this is an easy 9 out of 10.
Oh, wow.
It's a dragonkin soldier of Noxtella, who is a half dragon person. So, I mean, obviously, and I had to fight with him. When you get him to low health, he goes sicko mode and gets like even more draconic powers. And I got so close to beating him once, and he owned me in that form, and it felt like getting you're driven into the ground by a big club when you're about to beat the dragon man. So
this guy's pretty terrifying. I'm looking up a picture of him. He seems like a pretty scary dude. I'm not a fan. Kind of reminds
visually
me...
one of the coolest bosses, definitely.
Yeah. Also, the name Noxtella is pretty rad. Big fan of that.
It's an underground city in the game. When you're playing Elden Ring, you're like, wow, this map is so huge. There's so much to do. I can't believe they made the game so big. And then you find an elevator that takes you underground, and there's a whole other game there, and you're like, what the fuck?
Is that where Austin was just like, oh my god, babe?
You have to see this shit.
Grab the cat from the toilet and bring both of you here.
Fuck you. Ifu would never. You've met Aoife. How could you slander her?
She refused to hang out with me, and I love her because I've told you I need you to tell that cat that I love her, but you know. I can't pick a side. Don't make me choose a parent in this divorce, Austin. I've gone through it once before.
Oh my god. All right. Well, this was a lot of fun. I can't believe I kept up the Elden Ring thing for the whole 3 hours this podcast took to do. I hope that wasn't annoying.
Yeah, I think everyone loved it. So let's wrap up by talking about our favorite series and our MVP.
Yeah.
My favorite series this week, I think I'm going to give it to Akane-banashi. I thought it was a good chapter, and I really do like what it's delivering, and I think this series is very good. Also, yeah. I realize now, after the fact, we didn't decide if we're going to keep Earthchild in the recap.
I feel like your tone was not positive.
I don't think it was really a question, honestly.
Okay, good. I'm glad we're in agreement.
You want me to keep on doing this podcast with you?
Damn. Right. Go back to space. No one wants you here, lady.
Austin, what was your favorite?
I mean, I think for my favorite series, I feel like you have to give it to Dr. Stone. Just like it gets a bonus point multiplier for it being the final chapter, right? Like if it was a regular chapter, I probably would say Spy Family, just because that was delightful the whole way through. But just as an artist, I feel like my heart goes out to anyone trying to end their whole story. You're out on the ledge. You're putting it all out there for the audience, and you have to live with it for the rest of your life. That's what you did.
That's true. You've never had that, right? Everyone's loved every ending of Dice Funk.
Oh, I still have nightmares. So yeah, the Dr. Stone, honestly, for the series of the.
Hey, I liked the ending of the one season that I've listened to. So
thank you.
I got a job, so I suddenly had a lot less time to listen to the podcasts.
You don't have to make excuses. It's okay.
I was on the show and I didn't listen to it until eventually, so you know.
Oh, my favorite chapter this week. I agree with basically everything that you said, Austin, but I'm taking the other line of logic on that branch path, and I'm going to just say the Spy Family was my favorite this week. I think that a lot of it has to do with the fact that Dr. Stone kind of blindsided me with the direction it took, and I was so baffled by it that I didn't have a chance to feel good things about it, basically. It's like, have you thought this through, Senku? Seems like a bad idea. But there's a lot of wonderful things in it. There were actually quite a few really good chapters this week, I thought. So take your pick between several of them. So
my favorite character this week, though, is that's an easy one, slam dunk. It's Andy, who ripped himself into three to murder three very concepts of reality.
Obviously, yes, I agree. I mean, that was almost my chapter pick as well. How can you say no to the Mr. Skeletal reveal? Incredible.
I'm actually gonna go with Kaido.
I mean, you're wrong, but sure.
I really like the speech that he makes in this chapter and how he's so wrong. Like it's
how many fundamental forces of reality did he kill?
Yeah.
I think there are still insects in One Piece.
Is Odin a fundamental force of reality? The answer is yes. So
it's still like 3-1.
Hey, Odin's. I don't know how many he counts for. So
the audience, by the way, agreed 100% with Austin. He is the voice of the people. Dr. Stone and Andy as the character of the week.
That's what people always say about me. Voice of the people, not a pretentious, annoying, pedantic, overeducated fucking windbag. Populist Austin Yorski.
How did you get to
Shakespeare was both.
Yeah, sure.
That's true. Well, this was a blast. We could have gone on for another hour, honestly. I have more to say about the Magic the Gathering manga.
Yeah. We're going to do another As Explained by Manga to just explain to Nick, and he's just going to let it start and then mute his mic and just sit on his phone while we talk about Magic the Gathering for another hour and a half.
Do you think Tezzeret's going to betray the Phyrexians?
100%.
I don't know if
he's like the star scream of this universe. He's fucked over every person he's ever worked for, hasn't he?
Who's the next to get completed? You said Angrath is a joke. What do you think? Jace? You think you're going to get Jace?
They can't get rid of, because unless they find a way to undo completion, they can't. I don't see them doing a Gatewatch member. I think Jaya. I don't think we see anything in New Capenna. I think we go back to Dominaria and Jaya gets completed.
Nick pulled up his phone for people just listening to the audio version of this. I was hoping that maybe just end the call mid-sentence. That's also funny.
We have to actually announce the next series.
Yeah, let me race through this part real quick. Thank you everyone for listening to the show. We are here on twitch.tv/RoloT Wednesdays, Podbean, iTunes, SoundCloud, patreon.com/weekly manga recap, Twitter, Nick F Time, RoloT, WMR Podcast, and I forget your handle actually, Austin. Tell them where they can find you.
It's very difficult to remember. My name's Austin Yorski, and all of my handles are also Austin Yorski. So if you use the little mnemonic device, Austin Yorski is Austin Yorski. It'll be very easy to remember. Patreon.com. You can find me on Twitter. I'm not anywhere else particularly interesting, but my show Dice Funk is also everywhere this show is. Podbean, we're on YouTube, we're on Spotify. If you type Dice Funk, you will find all the people on this call and many other funny people pretending to be elves, talking about socialism and homosexuality. It's a good time.
You're also you can go to McDonald's and just say Dice Funk into the vendor, and they'll give you something. They legally have to. Also, we are not on SoundCloud. You said SoundCloud, and I was like,
I meant we're not. We're on.
There's one person out there who's typing Weekly Manga Recap into SoundCloud. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, we're not. Sorry.
If you want, hold on. I can make a SoundCloud channel. I just had to put music on there, so it's I'll just do my Phoenix Wright remixes.
Stop. So, okay. Thank you to Winston Cheddar and Mile Jack Stillis for creating the opening sequence of Weekly Manga Recap, to Steve Manor Artist for making stuff, boobs drawn everywhere, Steve Man art, and Jack Stillis for making the Google spreadsheet that we reference for all sorts of helpful stuff, like the MVP and favorite series voting. And also, you can go on there and nominate a series for us to read. However, in this case, the thing that we're going to be reading is something that we were supposed to start reading a few months ago, and so we're going to start doing it now. It's time for us to get caught up on Blue Box.
Yeah, Blue Box. Austin, do you want to come back with us and read about a bunch of hormonal teenagers who can't admit their feelings to one another?
I'll be here anytime you need me. Just once again, go to back to that McDonald's, say Dice Funk. They'll hand you a sword through the drive-through window, and then you just plunge that into a stone and say my name, and I'll appear.
For whatever reason, when you came to the McDonald's part, I didn't imagine you going somewhere and like speaking into like the radio box, whatever you call that, for the drive-through. I also didn't imagine going to the counter. For some reason, the thought that came to my head was going to the soft drink dispenser and saying
One Dice Funk, please. And you hit the Diet Sprite tap, and the sword just comes out.
That people say the McDonald's Sprite tastes different than store-bought Sprite. That's because there's a sword in there.
Oh, God.
The metal gives it as a unique flavor.
Gives it that taste. All right, everybody, that's it. Goodbye.